Chapter 30:10. Chu Li said, "If that's the case, I won't interfere. It's up to you." "Of course, Big Brother Chu, don't worry. I won't be careless." Li Hanyin smiled and said, "I know Big Brother Chu is worried that I'll be too proud. There's also your martial arts." Chu Li shook his head. "Since they're here, it means that they have the confidence to kill you." "Yes, yes." Li Hanyin nodded hurriedly. "Brother Chu is good at everything except a little. Gather? Bihuang? Silent promise welding? Fence? Aluminum," said Stun. Even the four strontium words choked, snuggled up to the Di-Ru-Yu, the kitchen inside. "Ruo Kuei?" Evil spirits. Chu Li glared at her, waved his hand, and disappeared in a flash. Li Hanyin's smile slowly faded as she glared in the direction of the Snow Lunar Pavilion's entrance. These people from the Holy Church of Light were really persistent. They were so annoying. Unfortunately, the Holy Church of Light was much stronger than the four major sects of the Ji dynasty. They would not stop their revenge just because he had taught them a lesson and killed a few of their masters. Instead, they would become even more ruthless. Provoking them was equivalent to provoking trouble. They had to keep fighting until one side fell. No matter how he thought about it, he was the one who fell first. He was not Big Brother Chu, who could deal with an entire sect alone. She furrowed her brows and pondered for a moment. In the end, she decided that she could not go all out to kill them. Instead, she wanted to maintain a stalemate. No matter how powerful she was, it was impossible for her to defeat the entire Holy Church of Light. If she won once, they would send even more powerful masters. In the end, she would still lose. Thus, he could only hide his abilities and not show off too much. Thinking of this, she shook her head. She wondered if Brother Chu would be disappointed if he knew about her decision. He had just taught her a wonderful sword technique, but she was the first one to back out. Chu Li stood outside the Snowy Moon Valley and saw Li Hanyin's thoughts. He nodded in satisfaction. She had indeed matured. If it was in the past, she would have killed without a care in the world. She wanted to kill until they were terrified. Young people were full of vigor, and it was hard to go against her nature. She didn't expect that she would be able to break away from this most instinctive reaction in such a short time. Rationality could suppress emotions, and she would not be reckless and impulsive. She could also make people feel at ease. Chu Li pondered for a moment, then disappeared in a flash. Spirit Crane's Peak. The morning sun was exceptionally bright, the sky was azure, and the air was fresh and pleasant. It had just snowed in the Great Ji dynasty, but it was still as warm as spring here. The fruits on the tree were getting more and more plump, and the fragrance was so rich that it permeated the entire Spirit Crane's Peak. Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi were picking the fruits from the tree. They no longer picked up the ones that had fallen to the ground, and the bunches of fruits on the tree could not be finished. They ate half of it, while Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi wanted to personally brew fruit wine for the remaining half. This way, they would not have to worry about others finding out about their origins. They could also drink it often, and it would be easy to store. Li was. T. Li observed them. Shout to them, to Li's Li, to them, to them. About. Chu Li could clearly see that their center of gravity was constantly changing to offset the strong force of the strong wind. This in itself contained an extremely brilliant body technique. He complemented this method of constantly exercising with the Spirit Crane technique and gained a deeper understanding of the Spirit Crane technique. This short period of time was equivalent to studying the Spirit Crane technique assiduously for half a month. Ever since he obtained the Spirit Crane technique, he relied on his familiarity with the Spirit Cranes and felt that cultivating it would be like a fish in water. He did not expect the Spirit Crane technique to be so difficult and completely different from its name. The worst thing about the Spirit Crane technique was that it looked easy but could not be achieved. The simpler the secret manual, the more effort it would take to cultivate it. To cultivate it, one had to figure it out by oneself, just like walking a route. Moreover, the key to the Spirit Crane technique was the observation of the Spirit Cranes and the understanding of heaven and earth. It required not only the movements, but also the state of mind. The former and latter were extremely difficult for people outside the 100,000 hills. Chu had the observation of the spirit cranes and was blessed by nature, but he could not understand these unique states of mind. He vaguely understood why Green Deer Cliff was so mysterious and forbade their disciples from leaving the mountain. They were using the environment of Green Deer Cliff to cultivate their state of mind and speed up the cultivation of the spirit crane technique. He understood that to master the spirit crane technique, he had to return to Green Deer Cliff. Cultivating in an environment like Green Deer Cliff was the best for the advancement of the spirit crane technique. More importantly, the last 3 levels of the spirit crane technique. First, observe the general idea and know the beginning and end, then understand it. That would be a whole different world. If one did not know the final goal and only focused on cultivating, one's progress would definitely be slow. You don't care about Prince Kong anymore? Co sure tossed a yellow fruit to him and blurted out, "The fairy's capital is spreading like wildfire. The whole city is in an uproar. This time, Prince Kong is really famous." "The crown prince did it on purpose, didn't he?" Co Chi asked. Chu said, "Our crown prince is not a generous person." Before he became the crown prince, Lung Jinghua was solemn but not harsh. After he became the crown prince, he suddenly became harsh and ruthless. Why can't he tolerate Prince Kong? Co Chi frowned. If he can't tolerate Prince Kong, it should be Prince Bao, right? Prince Bao used to be in charge of the army, and there were still many of his former subordinates in the army. His words were very effective in the army. How could he not provoke the emperor and the crown prince? Prince Kong, on the other hand, was not the same. He was just a prince who had nothing better to do. He was well-behaved and would usually eat and drink with Prince Bao. He did not do any evil or good deeds, so it was very easy for people to overlook him. He did not expect that he would become famous in Fairy's capital because of this matter. People were criticizing him for being ridiculous and not caring about the country. Chu said, "With these old men around, he will be restrained in the future. It's better to ask him to leave before he ascends the throne and the emperor is still on the throne. That way, he won't be criticized. If he dealt with the princes after he ascended the throne, his reputation would definitely be affected. People would think that he was narrow-minded and could not tolerate others. It would not be good to leave a bad impression. People's hearts are too complicated," Co Chi said. Lu Yurong purposely caused this matter to spread like wildfire. Why did she do that? It was obvious that she had thought it through before she dared to do it. Only Lu Yurong and Chu Li could handle this matter calmly and skillfully. To others, they were powerless. Chu Li smiled. Actually, it's very simple. As the crown prince's advisor, she only needs to think about the crown prince. The others are not important. If she offended them, then so be it. Chu Li, you should be the secret guardian commander. Co sure shook her head. She always felt that Chu Li was the most suitable. It was a pity to let Lu Yurong take the position. Chu Li smiled but did not say anything. Chapter 30:11. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the 4 black lights and shook his head. They really are courting death. Why do they come here to die? Co sure was puzzled. I went back to check, but there were no records. Logically speaking, they knew they couldn't defeat the spirit cranes and never succeeded. Why would they still come here to die? Maybe the spirit cranes have a grudge against them. Chu Li said. He could faintly feel their hatred. Even if they died, they would bite the spirit cranes. If they could bite the spirit cranes, they would die a worthy death. This might be their tradition. These spirit snakes were psychic creatures. Their intelligence was not inferior to humans. However, they were cold-blooded animals. They did not have high EQ. The only thing they had was hatred. Once they were provoked, even if they died, their companions would definitely seek revenge. They would not rest until they died. The spirit cranes didn't provoke them, right? Co sure said. Chu Li shook his head. The spirit cranes like to eat their gallbladders. They ate quite a lot. I see. Co sure nodded. No wonder they went crazy. Co Chi said, this is how it is. One thing feeds on another. She pulled out her sword and shook it lightly. It was like a pool of autumn water swaying on the sword. The light became brighter and brighter. She channeled her energy into the sword, or else she would not be able to break the snake's skin. Ding, 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 ding. She suddenly took a step forward and stood in front of Co. Sure. The light from her sword fell on the two snakes like rain. The snakes' bodies were black and shiny like they were made of black iron. They looked soft but strong. Chuli raised his palm and struck. He performed the Heavenly King palm. The surrounding spiritual energy was turbulent. It was the best environment for the Heavenly King palm. He pushed his palm out. Suddenly, the surrounding spiritual energy was like a swallow returning to its nest. His palm energy was the nest, and the surrounding spiritual energy was the swallow. His palm energy had only been pushed out for a meter, but it had already become a huge creature. It grew rapidly like a rolling snowball. In an instant, it had grown to the size of his body. It was shocking. He struck out with his palm again. This time, the palm force was different from before. It was gentle and soft, and after colliding with the huge palm force from before, the two palm forces rapidly shrank, going from the size of a body to the size of a fist. Their speed suddenly increased, like a flash of light. Bang, 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 bang. The two black snakes twisted their bodies, but were unable to dodge. The Heavenly King palms were too fast and arrived in an instant. They tumbled in the air and gradually loosened their bodies. By the time they landed on the ground, the two snakes were motionless, as soft as mud. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief and looked at his right palm in shock. He then looked at the two flying snakes. He knew how strong they were. They were truly invulnerable. The two black snakes in front of him that could not even withstand a single blow made him wonder if he had encountered them before. They did not seem to be invulnerable at all. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of metal clashing was still ringing like the sound of rain hitting the pipa. It was crisp and sweet, with a special rhythm and rhythm. It was Co. Chi who stood in front of Co. Sure and trapped the two snakes. Co. Sure's swordsmanship was exquisite. She could only defend against the two snakes, forcing them to be unable to hurt her, but she could not do anything to them. Even her treasured sword could not break their bodies. These two spirit snakes were different from the ones she had encountered before. They were tougher and faster, and if she was careless, she would be bitten. She dared not be careless and had to be 120% vigilant. While she was attacking fiercely, suddenly, a palm force appeared and hit the two snakes. The two snakes seemed to have been hit by a huge wave, and their bodies flew out involuntarily. They tumbled in the air, and finally, their bodies straightened, motionless. It was obvious that they had been shocked to death. The palm force of the Heavenly King palms was powerful and overbearing. Chuli suddenly laughed out loud. Co. Sure ran to the side of the two spirit snakes and used a dried branch to poke them. She found that they were indeed dead. Co. Chi quickly went to her side and glared at her. Co. Sure said, "Younger sister, you're still far from Chuli." Co. Chi looked at her unhappily. "Second sister, are you trying to sow discord? Looks like you won't be able to catch up to him." Co. Sure smiled. "From what I see, you shouldn't secretly exert your strength. Just follow behind him obediently. What's the point of wasting your energy? I like to cultivate." Co. Chi was unconvinced. Chuli pulled out his long sword, but he could not cut the snake's skin. This time, the snake was stronger than before. He then sheathed his sword and began to practice the first form of the universe. He accumulated some of the unique inner energy of the first form of the universe, and then channeled it into his sword. Suddenly, his sword force was much sharper, and he easily cut the snake's skin. He took out the snake gall and gave 2 to Co. Sure and the rest to Co. Chi. Co. Sure bitterly swallowed it and sighed, "This thing is so disgusting. I'm glad you guys can resist it." Co. Chi said, "I won't give it to you next time." Co. Sure chuckled. "You can't bear to?" Chuli said, "This time, the snake's skin is excellent. Take it back and sew it well." "Okay, leave it to me," Co. Sure said. "Let's go, it's dangerous here," Co. Chi said. Chuli shook his head. "You guys go back first. I need to think about it." "What are you thinking about?" Co. Sure asked. Co. Chi pulled her sleeve. "All right, you think about it," Co sure said. Chu held their waists, and in a flash he disappeared, sending them back to the imperial residence of King. Then he came back in a flash and stood at his previous position, thinking about the previous situation. So this was the Heavenly King palm. Although he had discovered it before, it did not have such a strong effect. It seemed that the thicker the spiritual energy, the stronger the effect. It was really scary. The Heavenly King palm could actually be performed outside of 100,000 Hills. What if he created an environment similar to 100,000 Hills? He suddenly disappeared and appeared on his own island in the High Duke's public house. Ling was practicing the crescent palm. She was dressed in a green outfit, and she was full of youthfulness. She was cold and quiet, and there seemed to be a layer of cold air around her. Chu suddenly said, "Take this." Ling took the opportunity to counter with her palm. Her Taiyin palm had been cultivated to the peak of its momentum. Her qi activity was perfect and smooth, and her entire body was unobstructed. She felt indescribably refreshed, as if she could destroy anything with a single palm strike. She did not hold back and struck with her palm. Bam! She flew backward, as if there was a rope pulling her from behind. She hit the wall of the courtyard. Ling's red lips twitched, and she looked at him in surprise. Chu smiled. "How is my palm energy?" "Such a strong palm energy," Ling said helplessly, "but it's so overbearing." She felt that her crescent palm was slapped back. It was extremely strong and overbearing. Fortunately, she had eaten many spirit pills and rare items, and her body was unusually tough, so she did not get hurt. Chu smiled. "I only used half of my palm energy." "What palm technique?" "Heavenly King palm." "Too bad you can't cultivate it." Chu shook his head. "Your crescent palm is strong enough." "Yes," Ling nodded. Chapter 31:11. "Master, come again." Ling scoffed. Her inner energy had become more and more refined. She was no longer as vulnerable as before. Although she was sent flying by his palm, she might be able to take it if she was prepared next time. It was a rare opportunity to spar with him. Bam, 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 bam. Ling was sent flying again and again. Chu struck with his palm. The Heavenly King's palm was not powerful, which was disappointing. At the same time, he used the life and death scripture to mobilize spiritual energy. Spiritual energy from all directions surged and instantly enveloped the Heavenly King's palm. Thus, the Heavenly King's palm transformed and devoured the spiritual energy ferociously. In the blink of an eye, it was completely devoured. The spiritual energy from the life and death scripture did not seem to be able to satisfy it in time. The Heavenly King's palm flew for 3 to 4 meters before it expanded several times, reaching the size of a human body. Chu's second palm followed. The two palm energies combined and suddenly condensed into the size of a fist, colliding with Ling's palm. Ling could not resist this palm energy. She was like a sheep that was hit by a galloping horse. She was sent flying. The power of the Heavenly King's palm, with the support of spiritual energy, was undoubtedly 10 times stronger. It was extremely terrifying. In terms of toughness and dominance, it was better than any other palm technique he had cultivated. It was no wonder that the Heavenly King's palm could dominate the world during the era of many enlightened masters. Now that he had the Heavenly King's palm, his strength had greatly increased. As he became stronger, he felt that his martial arts was not enough. There was always someone stronger. Everyone he met was stronger than him. This made him feel helpless. This was luck. He had high hopes for the Heavenly King's palm. Unfortunately, he was extremely disappointed. Without spiritual energy in an environment, the Heavenly King's palm was like water without a source. He had been using the life and death scripture to mobilize spiritual energy to aid the cultivation of the Heavenly King's palm. However, he did not know that the Heavenly King's palm did not require spiritual energy to cultivate. It required spiritual energy when it was used. Ling was sent flying again and again, but every time, she would pounce on Ling again and again. Her emerald green clothes were already stained with mud. Her jade-like face was also stained with some grass. She lost some of her coldness and suddenly had the aura of a pretty daughter from a humble family. Her understanding of the crescent palm deepened, and she learned a lot. With a master who could help her unleash her full strength and point out her weaknesses, her cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. The two of them practiced for more than 2 hours. Xueling had no idea how many times she had fallen. Again and again, he was already numb from the fall. All he knew was to get up and continue attacking. Finally, Chuli waved his hand and stopped. "Let's stop here for today. Master, please continue." "I can do it," Xueling quickly said. Chuli waved his hand. "Don't rush for quick results. You can't get fat in one go. You have to take it step by step to have a solid foundation." "All right." Xueling was infatuated with the feeling of improving at every moment. Chuli smiled at her and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in Gale City and returned to his house. He sat on his bed and continued to cultivate. Ding Ruijia was like a sword that was placed right in front of his throat and could pierce through at any moment. It was an extremely unpleasant feeling. It was already sunset. Chuli sat on his bed and used the omniscient mirror to observe the area within a 10-mile radius. Not far away, Gale Branch was bustling with activity as everyone was cultivating in the courtyard. Chuli was delighted to see this. He suddenly felt a little envious of these people. They could just cultivate all day long. Apart from cultivating, they did not have to worry about anything else as long as they followed orders. Their minds were pure, and their cultivation progressed very quickly. Their lives were simple and happy. They were unlike him, who calculated all day long. His mind was as fast as lightning, and the number of calculations he had made was equivalent to half a lifetime for an ordinary person. If these innocent and happy members of the association were harmed by Ding Ruijia, he would feel guilty. Hence, he had to stay here and prevent Ding Ruijia from killing anyone. Saint Sun Minghua promised that she would send someone who might even be a relative. It was against the rules to let her in. After all, there was no proof. What if she was a bad person? What were their protectors for? The two of them carefully looked at the old woman. They could tell that she did not know martial arts and was trembling. She did not seem like a threat. All right. You can go in and take a look," the skinny young man said softly. "However, the branch leader is very busy. He might not be here." "He's not here?" The old woman frowned. She hesitated and did not want to go in. Just then, Ko Cheong strode over and was about to enter the main door. The two young protectors bowed respectfully and told him about the old woman. Ko Cheong looked at the old woman and frowned. If he said that there was something wrong, he could not sense anything. If he said that there was nothing wrong, he felt that it was strange and inappropriate. Something was not right, but it seemed like the old woman felt that there was nothing wrong. "How about this?" Ko Cheong smiled. "The branch leader isn't here. If he comes back, I'll ask him to look for you." He decided to trust his intuition and not let the old woman enter the branch. Chapter 31:12. "Sigh, forget it then. I won't go in if you don't want to." The old woman sighed. "I don't have anything to do. I just heard that Day has made a name for himself, so I wanted to come and see." The two young guards looked at Ko Cheong and felt that the deputy leader was too heartless. This old woman wanted to see the leader, but he still stopped her. He was too cold. Moreover, this old woman was from the leader's hometown, so they were very close. Wasn't the deputy leader afraid that the leader would punish him if he found out? However, they were just two soldiers and had no right to question the deputy leader's decision. They could only obey and unwillingly stood in front of the old woman. They sighed. "Old lady, you can come another day." "All right, another day is fine." The old woman nodded. As she spoke, she turned around and slowly walked out. Looking at her lonely back, the two guards felt even more uncomfortable. They felt as if they had done something unpardonably evil. They looked at Ko Cheong again. Ko Cheong frowned and stared at the old woman's back. He shook his head. "Let's stay alert and be careful." "Yes." The two nodded. Ko Cheong slowly walked inside. At that moment, a green figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his way. It was the old woman from before. The old woman was still trembling, as if she could be blown away by the wind at any time. Her eyes were cloudy. It was hard to imagine that such a fast movement was from her. Ko Cheong knew that his judgment was right. There was something wrong with this old woman. The old woman stared at him with her cloudy eyes, unblinking. Ko Cheong felt like the two eyes were looking right through him. He felt unspeakably uncomfortable, and his hair stood on end. He felt a great threat and had the urge to run. Deputy leader. The two guards were about to step forward. Ko Cheong raised his hand, signaling them not to come over. He said in a low voice, "You two leave." The two were startled and did not understand. "Go find the leader," Ko Cheong said. Yes, the two of them understood. They glanced at the old woman and hurriedly ran out. The deputy division leader was indeed worthy of being the deputy division leader. His eyesight was not something they could compare with. This old woman in front of them was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. She obviously had an unfathomable cultivation, yet she still said that she was from the division leader's hometown. It must be a lie. She lied to them, but in fact, she was looking for trouble with the division leader. When they thought of this, they were both angry and helpless. With their innate realm cultivation, they were already considered experts outside, but in Gale Branch, they were the weakest and couldn't help at all. Even if they worked as hard as they could, they would not be able to catch up to the others. Fortunately, their cultivation speed in Gale Branch was 3 to 4 times faster than before. At this rate, it was not impossible for them to become grandmasters before the age of 30. It was said that there was a way to enter the surpassing state and become a grandmaster in Gale Branch. This was also the reason why Gale Branch was so attractive and sought after. Because of the Holy Church of Light, no one doubted this. Seeing them disappear, Ko Cheong heaved a sigh of relief. Their martial arts were ordinary now, but they were all potential. If they were trained well, they would all become grandmasters. They were very important to Gale Branch, and it would be a great loss for them to die prematurely. He met the old woman's murky gaze and suppressed his urge to turn and run. He asked coldly, "Who are you and what do you want?" "Zhao De is your branch leader?" The old woman asked slowly. Ko Cheong said, "Yes, our branch leader is Zhao De." "That's good." A smile appeared on the old woman's face. With a flash, she appeared behind Ko Cheong. Her movements were unbelievably fast. Ko Cheong sensed that something was wrong. Suddenly, he was alarmed. A small right hand was already on his back. His heart was as cold as ice. He knew that he was finished. Bang! Like a spring thunder, he felt an extremely strong force coming from his back. It was as if he was swept up by a huge wave. He somersaulted twice in the air and turned to look after the force was released. Chu Li had already appeared and caught the old woman's palm. The old woman was Ding Ruijie in disguise. Chu Li's Heavenly King palm and her 9 kills palm collided. Surprisingly, they were evenly matched. Both of them took a step back, but the force formed by the collision of their palms was so strong that Ko Cheong was pushed far away. "You're finally here," Ding Ruijie said. "Go and apologize to Xiao Ge." As soon as she finished speaking, she attacked again. Chu Li suddenly took a step back. When he was 5 steps away, he attacked with his palm. The surrounding spiritual energy from heaven and earth surged and instantly expanded his palm energy. At the same time, he attacked with his other palm and combined with this palm energy, forming a fist. The size of this fist energy could not be seen by others, but he could see it clearly with the omniscient mirror. He could see the process of the sudden acceleration and instantly hit Ding Ruijie's right palm. Bang! When the palm energy collided, there was another muffled explosion. Ko Cheong hurriedly retreated and hid behind a stone lion. He could feel the stone lion shake as if it was about to be pushed out of position. He was shocked and thought to himself, "What a strong palm energy. I really can't take it head on. The branch leader's cultivation level is really high." Chu Li smiled. He was finally not afraid of Ding Ruijie anymore. The power of the Heavenly King palm was beyond imagination, and he was full of confidence. "What palm technique is that?" Ding Ruijie asked. Chu Li said, "Make a guess." He did not want others to know that it was the Heavenly King palm. Moreover, no one who had experienced the Heavenly King palm was still alive. If he did not say it, others would not know that he was using the Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijie said, "Zhao De, interesting. Chu Li turned his head and said, Ko Chiong, go back first. Make sure no one comes out. Yes. Ko Chiong quickly responded and jumped over the wall into the branch. Chu Li turned to look at Ding Ruijia. What are you trying to do? Actually, I don't have to personally take revenge, Ding Ruijia said. Chu Li frowned and remained silent. Ding Ruijia said, if Sun Mingwen knew your real identity. Chu Li smiled. What real identity? Chu Li's heart sank. In the end, she had guessed it. However, he had to be wary of how much she had guessed and whether she was trying to trick him. You're the first person to be able to sneak into the Holy Church of Light. Ding Ruijia looked at him with a faint smile. Do you think I'm tricking you? Chu Li shook his head. I don't understand what you're talking about. Sneak into the Holy Church of Light? You're not from the Li Dynasty, are you? Ding Ruijia seemed to enjoy watching him like a cat toying with a mouse. She wanted to torture him first. Chu Li frowned. I'm an orphan. No one knows where I'm from. Why? Are you interested in where I'm from? I don't need to know that to avenge Liang Ying, do I? Life and death are fated. Xiao Ji's life is like that. Although I wanted to change it, I couldn't do it. It can't be helped. Who can resist the heavens? Ding Ruijia said. Chu Li said, that's good. It's good that you're able to accept it. We don't have to fight to the death. Xiao Ji's life is his business. Whether I avenge him or not is my business. Ding Ruijia said, my life is boring. It's good to have something to do. Chapter 31:13. Chu Li smiled. The world is so beautiful, but you've enjoyed too much. You're saying that life is meaningless. Is it because you're not smart enough? Ding Ruijia said, I now know that the most interesting thing is revenge. Chu Li said, if that's the case, come at me. I might not be able to kill you, Ding Ruijia said. Her cultivation level was higher than Chu Li's, but her martial arts skills were not up to par. The 9 kills palm was supposed to restrain him, but now that he had cultivated such a powerful palm technique, she could no longer restrain him. In that case, she would have to perish together with him. She was not afraid of perishing together with him. If she died, she would go to the Outland to meet that guy. However, if she died without killing Zhao Dai, she would be too ashamed to face him. Chu Li asked, what do you want then? I want to talk to Sun Mingwen, Ding Ruijia said. Chu Li frowned. The saint? The saint is at the Great Light Peak. Not everyone can meet her. As long as I spread the word, Sun Mingwen will definitely come see me, Ding Ruijia said. Chu Li scoffed. Why do you want to meet the saint? He knew that Ding Ruijia was right. She was well-versed in divination, and based on this, Sun Mingwen would not reject her. He wanted to know what she wanted to talk about. Ding Ruijia said, let's talk about your identity. What are you trying to say? Chu Li said impatiently. What identity? I have a clean background. I've done a thorough investigation before I joined the church. You can't just say whatever you want. Ding Ruijia shook her head. No matter how thorough their investigation is, do they know that you're originally from the East? The East? You're from the Ji Dynasty, right? I'm from the Fu Dynasty, Chu Li said impatiently. You're the successor of divination. Don't talk nonsense and ruin the reputation of the Prophecy Pavilion, all right? You're from the Ji Dynasty, Ding Ruijia said. I believe that Sun Mingwen will investigate once I tell her. Chu Li said, the saint might not believe your tricks. Let's try then. Ding Ruijia said, I know how powerful Sun Mingwen is. If she really wants to investigate, do you still think you can survive? However, to be able to become a branch leader, you are indeed an outstanding person. It is not an injustice for little good to die in your hands. Fine, fine. You want to kill me with a borrowed knife? Chu Li said calmly. Bring it on then. I like to see if the saint believes you or me. Then let's wait and see. Ding Ruijia said. A green shadow flashed, and she appeared 100 meters away from Chu Li. This godlike light body technique made Chu Li very wary, as it was a piece of cake for her to kill any of his subordinates. Such a dangerous enemy must be eliminated. However, he did not chase after her directly. He wanted to see what she wanted to do. It was not difficult to follow her. He was worried that she would turn around and teach the people of Gale Branch a lesson. She had charged into the Gale Branch. Clearly, not only did she want to kill him, she wanted to torture him before killing him. After a while, he saw that Ding Ruijia had already left. In the blink of an eye, she was already 10 miles away, so he instantly disappeared. He followed her closely, wanting to see where she was going. He was extremely envious of Ding Ruijia's light body technique. Most of the time, he could not expose his god's limbs. If he had her light body technique now, he would be much stronger when fighting an enemy. Ding Ruijia's body was like a shadow as she drifted forward. His heart sank as he realized that Ding Ruijia was heading toward the Great Light Peak. It was obvious that Ding Ruijia knew about the Great Light Peak. It seemed like she was really going to find Sun Mingwei and expose his identity. He did not know how much Ding Ruijia had divined, whether she knew everything about his identity or whether she only knew that he was from the Ji dynasty. He hoped that Ding Ruijia would only be able to tell that he was from the Ji dynasty, but not everything about him. It was obvious that heavenly prophecy was not omnipotent and could not be so detailed. If she had really divined everything about him, she should not have shown such a calm expression. She should have been surprised. Ding Ruijia's mind was as calm as still water. Most things in the world had already been settled, except for this. As long as she told Sun Mingwei about this, she could borrow her hands to kill Zhao Dai. Then, there would be no reason for her to stay in this world anymore. Back then, she did not follow her senior brother because of Xiao Gu. She needed to take good care of Xiao Gu and pass on her bloodline. Now that Xiao Gu had passed away, she had fulfilled her duty and should go to the Outland to meet her senior brother. When she saw Yang Inge's death, she was in so much pain and resentment that she wanted to destroy the world. However, this anger soon dissipated and gradually calmed down. Now, she no longer had that monstrous hatred. There was only one thought in her mind, which was to fulfill her duty and not to take revenge. Chuli followed closely behind her as he thought of a way to deal with it. Under such circumstances, if he did not kill her, everything would be destroyed if he was exposed. Not only would all his previous efforts be wasted, but more importantly, he would be hunted down by the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light's strength was beyond imagination, and they had many masters. If they really wanted to hunt him down, would he be able to withstand it? Even if he could, what about the people around him? However, why did she directly go to the Great Light Peak? Why did she not kill the people around him first and make him suffer first? After hesitating for a moment, he finally decided to be safe. Regardless of whether she was testing him or not, he had to stop her first. When he thought of this, he suddenly appeared in front of Ding Ruijia and blocked her way. Ding Ruijia stopped and looked at him with a faint smile. Chuli took a deep breath and said coldly, "What do you know?" Ding Ruijia said, "You're from the Ji dynasty, but you're a spy in the Holy Church of Light. It's obvious what your identity is. Are you a secret guardian from the Ji dynasty's secret guardians hall?" "Yes." Chuli nodded slowly. Ding Ruijia said, "Looks like the Ji dynasty can't be underestimated. Someone like you actually managed to sneak into the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light is known to be the hardest to sneak into because Sun Mingwei has the ability to read minds. How did you manage to hide from her?" "I was just lucky," Chuli said. "I'm very curious about this. If you tell me the truth, I might be able to let you off the hook," Ding Ruijia said. Chuli chuckled and shook his head. "Let me off the hook," Ding Ruijia said. "Letting you off the hook doesn't mean sparing you. It means sparing your subordinates. Although you're from the Ji dynasty, you still have feelings for your subordinates. You can't bear for them to die, right?" Chuli frowned, and his gaze became sharper. "I can't kill you. I'll have to use Sun Mingyue's hand, but you can't kill me either." Ding Ruijia said, "So, you can either tell me the truth, or I'm too lazy to learn it. I'm just satisfying my curiosity. There aren't many interesting things in this world." "All right," Chuli said. "Actually, I have a question to ask." "Speak," Ding Ruijia said. Chuli said, "How far have you calculated?" "You're from the Ji dynasty," Ding Ruijia said. "Only this." "Yes, this is enough," Ding Ruijia said. Chapter 31:14. Do you look down on heavenly prophecy? Ding Ruijia's face darkened. Chuli shook his head. "Fate is unpredictable. Who could predict it?" "I only know a little about heavenly prophecy," Ding Ruijia said coldly. "Even so, predicting fate is enough. Chuli smiled. Then, can you predict my fate? I can't. Ding Ruijia scoffed. This Xiao Dei was very strange. His body was shrouded in a fog, which was different from the nobles of the emperor. In short, predicting his fate would backfire badly, and the prediction would not be accurate. Can the Pavilion of Prophecy do that? I'm afraid not, Ding Ruijia said. The disciples of the Pavilion of Prophecy were the manipulators of fate. They did not travel the world for grudges, but to observe, respect, predict, and even create fate. If she was manipulated by fate, it would be a failure as a disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy. She was a failure who could not change her fate. She was a disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy, but her life was filled with misfortune. She lost her loved ones one by one, yet she could not do anything about it. However, her failure was understandable when it came to Xiao Dei. Even the most elite disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy would end up the same. Ding Ruijia said, "All right, you can tell me how you managed to fool Sun Mingwei." Chuli smiled and shook his head. Ding Ruijia's face darkened. She stared at him coldly. "All right, just you wait." With a flash, she appeared 100 feet away. With another flash, she appeared 200 feet away. Her movements were as illusory as a shadow. Chuli appeared behind her in the next moment and struck with his palm. The Heavenly King palm was unusually violent. Ding Ruijia did not expect him to be so precise. She hastily received the attack and was sent flying 10 meters away. Chuli swung his arms, and 2 streams of light caught up to her. Ding Ruijia met the light blades with her palms. This time, the light blades were even more powerful. As soon as she attacked, the blades hit her chest, but were blocked by the treasured clothing she wore. She was sent flying again. Chuli followed closely behind. He only had one chance to kill her. If he let her go, she would be able to predict it with her powerful heavenly prophecy. It would be difficult to kill her again. "Moo!" Chuli suddenly shouted and used the musical assassination technique. Then, he appeared behind her and unleashed a Heavenly King palm. This palm strike was different from the previous one. The 2 palm strikes, one left and one right, first fused together, then absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The palm force condensed in the center of the palm, and like a palm thunder, it pressed into Ding Ruijia's back. Puffed. She spat out a mouthful of blood. This Heavenly King palm was extremely ferocious and overbearing. After it entered her body, it didn't allow her to block it and directly shattered her internal organs. Even if she had inner force protecting her body, it was useless as it was forcefully shattered. Her vitality was strong. Even though her internal organs were shattered, she did not die. After spitting out this mouthful of blood, she suddenly became much more energetic. Her eyes were burning, and her whole body was surrounded by a monstrous force. Like a green light, she instantly shot towards Chuli. Bam! Their palm energies collided. Chuli did not expect her to be so fast. He could not use his full strength in such a hurry, and could only retreat. However, this force was exceptionally strange. There were several types of changes mixed together. Even if he used the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture to dispel it, it was still a little strenuous. By the time he completely dispelled this strange force, she had already disappeared. Chuli used the omniscient mirror to observe 10 miles away. Just as he was about to follow her, he realized that she had suddenly disappeared from his mind. Therefore, he shrank to 10 miles away. Although the omniscient mirror could observe 10 miles away, he usually paid attention to 10 miles away. Since he still had energy left, his vision was clearer and more comfortable. He immediately shrank to 10 miles away, but he still could not see her. 5 miles for miles, until 1 mile away, he still could not see Ding Ruijia. Could she really have disappeared? Or did she also have a strange skill similar to God's limbs? He thought about it. The disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion were mysterious and powerful. No one could figure out how powerful they were. He was afraid that Ding Ruijia also had a strange skill that she had not used. Liang Yinge liked to hide his trump card. He had one trump card after another. He was afraid that he had learned it from Ding Ruijia. He frowned and carefully sensed the existence of his heavenly king palm energy. However, he found that it had been cut off. It was as if Ding Rueja had died, and the heavenly king palm energy had disappeared. Of course, there was also a possibility that Ding Rueja had dispelled the palm energy. For now, it seemed that Ding Rueja had dispelled the palm energy. His heart kept sinking as he completely lost his sense of Ding Rueja. There was no longer any trace of her existence between heaven and earth. It was as if she had completely disappeared and left this world. He stood in the same place and frowned. She must have used a secret skill to escape. If he could not kill her, there would be endless trouble. She would definitely find Sun Mingwei and tell him his identity. From then on, he would not have a peaceful day. Thinking of this, his killing intent surged. He had to kill her. Even if he could not kill her, he had to shut her up. However, the difficulty of doing this was beyond imagination. She could predict all kinds of troubles and avoid them in advance. If he wanted to kill her, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. He suddenly felt a little annoyed and thought of a countermeasure. He could not delay it for too long. Otherwise, if she really ran to Sun Mingwei, he would definitely be exposed. Everything he had done in the past would turn into water, and many people would be implicated. It was impossible to find her. Everything on her had disappeared without a trace, and he could not find her even if he wanted to. He paced with his hands behind his back. The more anxious he became, the calmer his heart became. He was eager to find a countermeasure. After walking back and forth a few times, he suddenly stopped. He closed his eyes and began to sense. Suddenly, he disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was already in a ravine. The ravine was located deep in the mountains and was surrounded by lush trees. Even in this winter, the trees were still green. The inside of the ravine was as warm as spring. It was really a good place to live in seclusion. He slowly stepped into the ravine and walked inside step by step. He arrived outside a wooden house and looked around. Seeing that there was no movement around, he opened the door and stepped in. The house was empty. There was almost nothing in it. It made people wonder if it was a place for people to live. He placed 2 flying blades on the table. They were as bright as new and gave off a chilly aura. It seemed that they had the ability to suppress evil and ward off evil spirits. Chu Li felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with these 2 flying blades. It was as if he had seen someone he had known for a long time. It was the light blade that he had shot out. It was shockingly powerful. He did not expect to see it here. He stepped forward and reached out his hand. Just as he was about to take the blades, he suddenly stopped and looked around. In the end, he did not find anything suspicious. However, he could not help but feel that something was strange. It was as if someone had deliberately led him here. When he thought of this, his heart trembled slightly. This place was either Liang Yingna's or left for her master's junior. In short, there was nothing good here. He wanted to see how lucky he was and whether Ding Rueja could escape. Chapter 31:15. He squinted his eyes and used the omniscient mirror to observe his surroundings. He found that the small valley was not big, but the terrain was excellent. His expression changed slightly, and he was about to use God's limbs to leave. His surroundings suddenly changed, and the omniscient mirror lost all senses. The world turned dark, and he did not know where he was. There was only darkness. He could not use God's limbs anymore. He did not know where he was and could not find a place he wanted to go in the void. Once he used it, he would be trapped in the infinite void, unable to find this world or even return to this place. He quickly retracted the omniscient mirror and observed himself. His body shone brightly, and the void in his mind was still vast and endless. A Buddha and a demon stood with their backs facing each other, chanting. Lotuses of different colors floated in the sky and finally returned to the Buddha and demon bodies to strengthen their Dharmakaya. In the omniscient mirror, his inner energy was like a stream under the moonlight. The spiritual energy around him was like the moonlight, brightening his body and illuminating his surroundings so that he would not get lost. He withdrew from the omniscient mirror and looked around. He was in a vast sea of clouds and could not see his surroundings. He could not see up or down, which made him feel an inexplicable sense of despair. Chu Li furrowed his brows in deep thought. He recalled what the omniscient mirror had observed before the formation was activated, and combined it with the surrounding terrain. He speculated that this was a 5 ultimate universe formation. The 5 ultimate elements were the 5 sources of absolute benefit. Once all 5 senses were sealed, they would not be able to be used, and they would become a cripple who could not hear, smell, taste, or feel. Other than sealing his 5 senses, there were also the 5 ultimate elements of fire, wind, snow, and thunder. A slight movement would cause wind and rain, and thunder and lightning would strike. Each move was fatal, leaving no way out. He had a deep understanding of the Tao of array formations. By chance, he had studied the Chinquan 5-terminal formation. As long as it was a formation, no matter how deadly it was, there must be a way out. He wanted to break out, but it was impossible with his martial arts and divine power. The only way was to find this way out. The formation was a world of its own. All his divine power and martial arts could not resist the power of the formation. He was like a frog under an elephant's feet. How could he jump? It was useless. He had to find the only way out. "Senior Ding, please show yourself," Chu Li said loudly. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this was Ding Ruijia's doing. Initially, he thought that he could use his flying dagger to sense Liang Ying's original residence. As long as he found Liang Ying's grave, he could rely on Ding Ruijia's heavenly prophecy art to sense Liang Ying's grave and lead her back. Unexpectedly, Ding Ruijia was even smarter. She used the flying daggers as bait and set up the 5-terminal universe formation here. The surroundings were empty and no sound came out. Chu Li knew that Ding Ruijia was watching from the side. She had to do it herself. "Does Senior Ding really want to kill me?" Chu Li asked. "Don't you want to know my secret?" The surroundings were still empty, without a single sound. Ding Ruijia clearly wanted him to despair and break down. Once she collapsed, her willpower would vanish. She would then say whatever she wanted to ask, and it would be even more painful. She would definitely feel great if she killed him. Chu Li continued, "This is the 5 ultimate universe formation, right?" He needed to give Ding Ruijia enough pressure. No matter how smart a person was, they would do stupid things under great pressure. This was his chance. Ding Ruijia stood motionlessly at the side. He needed some time to break the array. During this period of time, Ding Ruijia could do many things. It would not be difficult for her to kill everyone in Gale Branch. It would also be troublesome for her to look for Sun Minghua. Chu Li said, "The 5 ultimate universe formation is indeed powerful, but it's not without weaknesses." There was still no movement in the surroundings. Ding Ruijia had enough patience. Chu Li smiled. "It's very easy to break the 5 ultimate universe formation." Ding Ruijia still did not say anything. Chu Li said, "I can break this array in 15 minutes. Do you believe me, Senior Ding?" "Oomph." Ding Ruijia finally could not help but sneer. This 5 ultimate universe formation was the result of her painstaking efforts to find this wonderful place. After 20 years of modification, it was finally formed into a perfect array. Once trapped in the array, even an enlightened master would have to spend a lot of effort to break it, let alone a grandmaster. Chu Li shook his head. "In my opinion, Senior Ding has made a mistake." Ding Ruijia calmed down and remained unmoved. Chu Li said, "Senior Ding has planted 2 more trees on the sun position. This way, the wood energy is too strong, which has affected the balance of the 5 ultimate universe formation. Its power has been greatly reduced, and it has even become a fatal weakness. I only need to bombard it with my inner energy, and it will be easy to break." Ding Ruijia was standing at the peak of a mountain, looking down at Chu Li in the valley. Her green robe fluttered in the wind, and her face that had regained its smoothness showed a solemn expression. Chu Li's words hit the nail on the head. Chu Li continued, "Senior Ding, I think you can't tell that these 2 trees are not ordinary trees. They are full of vitality, and the wood energy is much more abundant than ordinary trees. In the end, it has become a weakness. Senior Ding, you are a sentimental person. Chuli shook his head and smiled. You have developed feelings for these two trees, and you can't bear to destroy one of them. You water them every day, trim them, and watch them grow little by little. People say that plants are heartless, but they don't know how they could be heartless. Senior Ding, you practice divination, so your senses are sharp. You can vaguely feel their feelings, right? Shut up. Ding Ruijie could not help but shout. She was shocked. She did not expect Chu Li to say something like that. How could plants be heartless? As soon as these words came out, his knowledge was above Xiao Ji's. Chu Li sighed. Senior Ding, if you don't let me go, then I can only offend you and destroy these two trees. Umph. Ding Ruijie sneered. In the formation, heaven and earth were one, and everything was one. As long as the formation was not broken, not a single plant or tree could be destroyed. This Xiao Dai was really arrogant. Chu Li said, how about we make a bet? What? Ding Ruijie scoffed. Chu Li had always liked to solve the biggest problem with the smallest price. If it was in his past life, of course, it would not be suitable. However, people in this era took oaths and bets very seriously, so they would not go back on their words. If I can break this formation, the grudge between me and Liang Inga will be written off. In your dreams. Hee, Senior Ding. Do you want to fight to the death with me? It's good that you understand. Forget it. Chu Li sighed. The five ultimate formation cut off all senses. She could hear each other's words, which meant that her position was on the only way out. Only there could she talk to the people in the formation and hear each other's voices. Through the topography imprinted in his mind by the omniscient mirror, he knew where the formation was activated. As such, he could conclude that the peak of the mountain was where the life door of the formation was located, and Ding Ruijie's position was his locator. The sound she made was the channel that he could use. I wonder how Senior Ding wants to deal with my subordinates? Kill them all. Ding Ruijie said faintly. You won't be lonely. Isn't it better to let them accompany you down there? Chapter 31:16. Chu Li used her voice to locate her location and kept correcting the location in his mind. He overlapped with reality so that he did not need to see or feel and could directly rush over. There could not be any difference between the two, or else one wrong step would lead to a series of wrong steps. He continued, Senior Ding, why do you have to do this? They're innocent. Aren't you afraid of harming the heavens? I'll leave this world after I kill them, Ding Ruijie said. You don't have to plead for mercy. Their fates are already sealed. Chu Li's killing intent surged. Then I have no choice but to offend you. He disappeared in a flash and rushed to the position he had set in his mind. He took a step forward and the scenery before him changed. The strong wind howled, and the strong wind was like knives cutting his body. He had the treasured clothing and inner energy to protect his body. Otherwise, he would have been frozen. He had already closed his eyes to avoid looking around so that his vision would not affect his footsteps. However, he knew that it was difficult to do so. A person's senses would be constantly affected by the outside world. They might think that they were walking in a straight line, but they would unknowingly go astray. The five ultimate universe formation affected their senses, and humans could not resist it. He relied on the omniscient mirror to control his body and Mahavirokana's immobility scripture to suppress his senses and minimize the influence of the outside world. However, the power of the formation was extremely strong. He could only hold on for a short time, just a few breaths. If he could not reach his goal in a few breaths, it would be 100 times more difficult to break the formation on his own. The cold wind entered his body, and he was almost frozen. It seemed like the treasured clothing had lost its effect. He took another step forward. The extreme cold instantly turned into extreme heat. The air seemed to have turned into lava. His hair curled up, and his body gave off a burning smell. The feeling of being roasted made him feel like he was going to collapse. He wanted to fly away immediately. The omniscient mirror observed his body and realized that his body was heating up rapidly. His temperature rose rapidly, as if he was going to burn. He quickly visualized the cold lake that the spirit crane had brought him to. He carefully experienced the feeling of diving into the cold lake. Waves of cold air flowed from his mind to his entire body and suppressed the rising temperature. He took another step forward. One step was equivalent to 10 others. He strode across the sky like a shooting star. He shut his eyes to prevent himself from looking at his surroundings. The appearance was born from the heart, and the heart changed according to the appearance. Even the strongest mind would inevitably be affected by external appearance. Boom! A huge clap of thunder exploded beside his ear. His mind was blank, and his thoughts seemed to have stopped working. Boom! Rumble! Boom! The continuous thunder made him tremble all over. Under the might of heaven, he was so small and insignificant, as if a single thunder could blow him up into pieces at any time. Mahavairocana's immobility scripture circulated in his mind. In the blink of an eye, the void in his mind reappeared. He regained his clarity and exclaimed inwardly that it was amazing. If not for the protection of Mahavairocana's immobility scripture, he would have become an idiot who would never wake up again. This 5 ultimate Chinquin formation indeed lived up to its name. Rumble, 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 rumble. Each thunderclap was more powerful than the one before. It was as if thunder was the only sound in the world. It was as if he was trapped in a lightning prison. An aura of destruction enveloped his surroundings, and he felt like he could be turned to ashes at any moment. He gritted his teeth and continued to rush forward. Crack! A voice that made his scalp tingle suddenly rang out. Even with his eyes closed, he could still feel the light shining brightly. The omniscient mirror had been curled up in his body to control his movements and did not observe the outside world. Even so, he knew that a bolt of lightning had struck him. He was very familiar with this feeling. He had experienced this feeling many times when he used the Eclipse Purloin skill. When the power of thunder entered his body, all inner energy was not worth mentioning in front of it. Thunder was the cardinal of heaven and earth, and it was above all other forces. He instantly froze and could not move. All of his inner energy was circulating desperately, and several heart techniques were circulating along their own routes. At this critical moment of life and death, his ability to multitask was displayed to the fullest. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, Cloud, Slashing Power, Heavenly Demonic Power, Divine Light Technique, and many other martial arts were dispelling the power of thunder. All of these techniques were extraordinary. Soon, a trace of the power of thunder was dissolved, and his body moved. He disregarded his injuries and desperately took a step forward. After one step, he came to a world of ice and snow. The cold suddenly entered his body, and while he was weak, it directly entered his organs. The blood flow in his organs slowed down, and his thoughts seemed to slow down as well. He gritted his teeth and desperately urged his inner energy to circulate to dispel the cold. Before he could dispel this wave of cold, another wave of cold had arrived. The 2 waves of cold overlapped, and their power was even stronger. His thoughts seemed to be slower, and the circulation of his inner energy seemed to be slower as well. Chuli knew that if this went on, he would soon freeze to death. In his mind, he visualized the scorching sun. A sun emitted thousands of golden rays as it rose from the void and shone on his body. Suddenly, his body felt warm, and the cold in his organs was dispelled. His blood flow gradually became stronger. He took advantage of the fact that he could move and hurriedly took another step forward. The scorching heat that came at him immediately enveloped him. It was as if his entire body was about to split open. There was no buffer between the extreme cold and the scorching heat. His originally shrunken body suddenly expanded. The change was too fast. Under the cold contraction and the heat expansion, his body seemed to have cracks. He did not dare to move violently. He could only move gently, for fear of breaking himself. He gritted his teeth and took another 2 steps to reach the life gate. Then, he took another step and encountered the extreme cold again. The cracks that were originally split open seemed to be bigger, and his body almost fell apart. Another step, and it became scorching heat again. He felt that he could not take it anymore. From the extreme cold to the scorching heat, then to the extreme evil, and then to the scorching heat again. The cold and heat alternated so violently that even iron and stone could not withstand it. Not to mention his body of flesh and blood. He was about to collapse. His flesh and blood would shatter and scatter on the ground, turning into ashes. However, this feeling did not affect his progress. Instead, he became more determined. Unmoved, he continued to take another step forward. Suddenly, his vision became clear. A nine tribulations palm energy surged toward him. Chuli took the hit head-on. He stood firmly on the spot and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured by the formation. Now that he was hit by Ding Ruijia's inner energy, his injuries became more serious. However, no matter how serious his injuries were, he could not retreat. If he fell into the formation again, it would be difficult for him to survive. After witnessing the power of the 5 Ultimate Universe formation, he realized that he had underestimated it. "Moo!" he suddenly shouted, and the musical assassination technique appeared again. Ding Ruijia was shocked. He appeared behind her in a flash and slammed both his palms at the same time. He had gathered all the inner energy in his body to perform a Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijia was stunned. She hurriedly faced the Heavenly King palm and instantly fell into the formation. Chuli finally breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled, but a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Even though Ding Ruijia was the person who set up the formation, it would take her some effort to get out after falling into the formation. He looked around. All his senses returned to his body. He could see the entire formation clearly. He quickly analyzed it and wanted to take over the 5 Ultimate Universe formation. He wanted to trap Ding Ruijia in the formation to prevent her from coming out and harming others. Chapter 31:17. The 5 Ultimate Universe formation was extremely complicated. Although he had studied it before, it was his first time seeing it. His mind raced as he quickly analyzed it and turned it into his own formation. A moment later, Ding Ruijia arrived with a surging palm energy. Chuli gritted his teeth and used the Heavenly King palm. Bang! Ding Ruijia was sent flying again and fell into the formation. Chuli knew that he could not delay any longer. Otherwise, Ding Ruijia could break out again. She was the one who set up the formation and naturally knew how to get out. The only way to trap her was to change the formation, but it was not easy to change it. Now that the formation was operating on its own and the 5 elements were connected, it did not need or repel external forces. It was difficult for him to change it by force. He needed a profound formation cultivation to do so. It was not easy for him to change the operation of the formation. Woo! Ding Ruijia's palm energy came again. Chuli used the Heavenly King palm again. The Heavenly King palm energy was strange and overbearing. Even if it could not hurt Ding Ruijia, it could still send her flying into the formation. Chuli endured it, but his injuries kept worsening. He did not care. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth kept healing his body. As long as he successfully changed the formation, he would be able to kill Ding Ruijia once and for all. Otherwise, he would not be able to sleep and eat in peace. When he thought about the Holy Church of Light hunting him and Ding Ruijia killing Ko Cheong and the others, he wanted to kill her. He could not let Ding Ruijia live. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He took out 2 jade pendants and stood at the top of the mountain to stare at the valley below. Finally, he gritted his teeth and threw the 2 jade pendants that were glowing with a warm luster to the north and south. Suddenly, there was a loud boom. The surrounding sky seemed to distort like ripples on a lake. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief. His pale face had a tinge of red. This time, it was extremely exhausting. He had used almost all of his intelligence to find the 2 formation cores and change the 5 ultimate Qian Kuan formation into the Qian Kuan extermination formation. Once the formation was completed, there was almost no life in the formation. Boom! There was an explosion and a lightning struck Ding Ruijia. Ding Ruijia barely moved 3 feet to the side to avoid it. The ground was scorched black. Although Ding Ruijia avoided it, she was still shocked. Chuli smiled. Now, it was Ding Ruijia's turn to have a taste of what he had experienced earlier. She wanted to experience the power of the formation. He might be able to avoid it, but she might not be able to. His smile suddenly froze. Ding Ruijia's figure suddenly swayed and disappeared from the omniscient mirror. Chu Li was stunned. Ding Ruijia had used this technique to escape earlier. He could clearly see Ding Ruijia, but the omniscient mirror could not sense her. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. He didn't need to think too much to know that it was a secret technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets. The lightning in the sky slowly dissipated. Ding Ruijia's face was as pale as a sheet. Her body was getting thinner and weaker, as if she could be blown away by a gust of wind. She walked slowly and gracefully across the ravine, as if she was walking on flat ground. From the outside of the ravine, she walked into the small house in the ravine and disappeared from Chu Li's sight. The 5 Ultimate Universe formation that Chu Li had put in so much effort to modify suddenly became ineffective. It did not seem to have noticed her at all. Chu Li's face darkened. The Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries indeed lived up to its name. With this technique, they could avoid all formations. Wouldn't those protective formations be useless against them? He knew that such a strange technique must have come at a great cost, but it did not matter to Ding Ruijia. Chu Li's figure flashed and entered the formation. At this time, he had already seen through the formation. He walked in the formation as if he was walking on flat ground. 3 to the left and 4 to the right. He followed a special footwork and walked forward until he reached the small house in the ravine. Ding Ruijia walked out of the small house and stood at the door. She looked at him coldly. "Zhao De, I have underestimated you." Chu Li said, "What kind of strange technique did Senior Ding just use?" "It's useless even if you know," Ding Ruijia said lightly. "The secret technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries," Chu Li said. Ding Ruijia said lightly, "The heaven-deceiving technique." Chu Li smiled. "It must have come at a great cost. Man can be deceived, but not the heavens." Ding Ruijia said, "Do you want to learn it?" Chu Li said, "I'll pass on the strange technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries." He kept a respectful distance from the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. He felt that this group of people were abnormal. They fought with the heavens all day long. It was simply suicidal. How could fate be controlled and used so easily? It was no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Ding Ruijia said lightly, "You can't kill me." Chu Li suddenly threw out 2 flying blades. The electric light flashed and appeared in front of her. Ding Ruijia did not dodge and attacked with her palm. Chu Li countered with the Heavenly King palm. Bam! Chu Li flew out and dissipated the palm energy. This time, he did not have to take it head-on. Ding Ruijia was sent flying by the Heavenly King palm. At the same time, she was hit by 2 blades. However, she was wearing treasured clothing, so the flying blades could not hurt her. Chu Li felt helpless. If he did not have external help, it was almost impossible to kill Ding Ruijia. The secret technique on her was impossible to guard against. She could escape at any time, but he could not let her escape. Ding Ruijia fluttered into the formation. Suddenly, that strange feeling appeared again. Chu Li let out a smile. He concluded that the heaven-deceiving technique would cause him endless trouble. He wanted to force her to keep using it. He wanted to see how long she could use it and whether she would be hurt by the heaven-deceiving technique. He chased after Ding Ruijia like a shadow and attacked her with the Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijia dodged and attacked, but she could not get rid of Chu Li. She fluttered out of the formation. Chu Li desperately used his light body technique to block her way. Unfortunately, Ding Ruijia's light body technique was far better than his. In the end, she escaped from the 5 Ultimate Universe formation and entered a mountain. She fought as she chased after him. Unknowingly, the sky darkened. As dusk rose, the 2 of them were still fighting. Boom! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Ding Ruijia sped up and avoided the lightning. Chu Li was overjoyed. He knew that the heaven-deceiving technique had backfired. Ding Ruijia suddenly turned around and walked towards Chu Li, giving him a fright. She was going to drag him down with her to hell with her. He became the one running away and ran toward the valley. Boom! Another bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Ding Ruijia disappeared and appeared behind Chu Li in the next moment. She was so fast that Chu Li could not dodge. Crack! Chu Li felt numb when he heard this sound. He felt his body stiffen and he lost control. This familiar feeling made him understand that he was struck by lightning again. He used all his mystical skills to dispel the lightning energy. The next moment, he appeared in front of Ding Ruijia in a flash. He pressed his palm on her chest and spat out all the inner energy in his body. Bang! Ding Ruijia spat out blood and was sent flying. Chu Li followed closely behind and caught up with him once again. Another palm energy fell. Stop! A shout was heard. A middle-aged man in white suddenly appeared in front of him and faced the palm. Bang! Chu Li felt his palm hit a hard rock. The palm energy rebounded and he was sent flying. He turned in the air and swung both his hands. TSK tisk. Two bolts of lightning shot toward Ding Ruijia's throat and forehead. How dare you! The middle-aged man in white snorted and appeared in front of Ding Ruijia. He waved his sleeve and the two flying knives were sent flying. Chapter 31:18. He was so close to killing Ding Ruijia, but someone stopped him at the crucial moment. Killing intent erupted from his body like a volcano, and he wished for nothing more than to pounce forward and kill this meddlesome fellow with a single palm strike. But this person's cultivation was deep and not inferior to Ding Ruijia's, and might even be a level higher than Ding Ruijia's, so he might not be able to defeat him. Who are you? Chu Li took a deep breath to suppress his anger and stared coldly at the middle-aged man in white. The man in white said, Zhu Hua from the Prophecy Pavilion. After saying that, he looked up at the gradually condensing thunderclouds in the sky and turned to look at Ding Ruijia, who was on the verge of collapse. He shook his head regretfully and said in a deep voice, No matter who you are, you can't kill Miss Ding. Goodbye. With that, he tugged at Ding Ruijia's sleeve and fluttered away. Chu Li was furious. His body swayed as he stood in front of the two men. The thunderclouds formed in the sky and were about to descend. Zhu Huaxian disappeared before Chu Li's eyes and reappeared 100 meters away in the next moment. Like a stream of light, he disappeared into the forest in an instant. Chu Li hurriedly used the omniscient mirror to observe, but he could not find anything. Chu Li was frustrated. If Ding Ruijia escaped, she would definitely look for Sun Mingyue next, and he would be finished. He raised his head to look at the thunderclouds that were slowly dispersing. It was obvious that Zhu Hua had also used the heaven-deceiving technique, which was why he was able to hide Ding Ruijia from his omniscient mirror. However, even if he could not see it, Chu Li still followed closely behind him with his tracking skill. Unfortunately, Zhu Hua's light body technique was powerful, and he could travel hundreds of feet in one step without a trace. Even if Chu Li could follow him, he was far behind and could not catch up with the heaven-deceiving script. He stood on top of a mountain and looked at the direction where Ding Ruijia and the others disappeared. His face was gloomy as he thought of a plan. I can't kill Ding Ruijia now, so I can only think of another way. Things don't always go your way. How can everything go your way? Sun Mingyue said. Ding Ruijia said, It's about the Holy Church of Light's luck. Sun Mingyue was stunned. The Holy Church's luck? Ding Ruijia nodded. I accidentally saw the Holy Church's luck. It's not good. Senior Ding, please enlighten me. Sun Mingyue cupped her fists and said, What's wrong with the sacred church's fate? From what I can see, the Holy Church of Light's demise is imminent, Ding Ruijia said in a low voice. Sun Mingyue asked, When will it be destroyed? It will be destroyed within 10 years, Ding Ruijia said. Why were they destroyed? Sun Mingyue asked without batting an eyelid. Ding Ruijia said, Because of your identity as a successor, if you wish to avoid the fate of the Holy Church of Light's destruction, you must resign from your position and choose someone else to be the saint. So you're saying that I'm a scourge? Sun Mingyue revealed a faint smile, a hint of amusement at the corner of her eyes. Yes. Ding Ruijia nodded slowly and said, Forgive me for being blunt, but you and the Holy Church of Light are incompatible. It's not suitable for you to be the Holy Church's saint. It's not good for you and the Holy Church if you're the saint. It's better for the two of you to separate. Interesting. Sun Mingyue's smile widened. She shook her head and said, Senior Ding's divination skills are truly amazing. All right, I understand. If you don't want the Holy Church of Light to perish, you'll have to step down as soon as possible. Ding Ruijia said, That's all I have to say. Farewell. She got up and drifted away. Chapter 31:19. Senior Ding, please wait. Sun Mingyue called out softly. Ding Ruijia paused and slowly turned to look at her. Sun Mingyue said, I see that Senior Ding has something to say. I hope Senior Ding can enlighten me. Ding Ruijia pondered and shook her head. I shouldn't talk about the Holy Church's internal affairs. Senior Ding, please speak your mind. I won't blame you, Sun Mingyue said. Ding Ruijia looked at her deeply and sighed. There's something wrong with the Holy Church's priest. What is it? Sun Mingyue frowned. Ding Ruijia said, There's a Fu Dynasty traitor. I think his surname is Fong. Sun Mingyue suppressed her instinctive denial and looked at her thoughtfully. Senior Ding, you can see this? Heavenly prophecy is mysterious and unpredictable. I don't know what you can see. Ding Ruijia said plainly. I'm just telling you what I saw. It's considered a form of friendship between you and Xiao Ge. Sun Mingyue gave a fist salute. Thank you, Senior Ding. She felt a little guilty. Liang Ying's death was related to her, and she did not expect Xiao Ge to really kill Liang Ying. Ding Ruijia said, I've said what needs to be said. My worldly wish has been fulfilled. I'll never see you again. She waved her hand and fluttered away, quickly disappearing into the forest. Sun Mingyue frowned and remained silent. Doing pursed her red lips and did not let herself speak. After a while, Sun Mingyue turned around and walked back. Doing only dared to speak when she saw that her expression had relaxed. Saint, she's talking nonsense, right? You can't ignore the words of the Heavenly Prophecy Pavilion's disciple, Sun Mingyue said. Doing scoffed. She said that priest Fong Qingyang is a Fu Dynasty traitor. Isn't that nonsense? Sun Mingyue did not comment. Du Ying said, Guardian Fong has killed many Fu Dynasty martial arts masters and has always been hunted by them. I don't believe that he's a Fu Dynasty traitor. Sun Mingyue smiled and did not say anything. She did not believe it either. However, the world was unpredictable, and the most unexpected was often the truth. She never doubted Fong Qingyang's loyalty, but people were fickle. She still had to see. However, this matter could not be investigated or people would be divided. She had a special technique, so she didn't need to investigate. She could find clues with just a few words. Send a message to Protector Fong, Sun Mingyue said. Ask him to come see me. Yes. Doing nodded helplessly. The setting sun dyed the light palace yellow, but it was still bright and clean. Sun Mingyue sized up Fong Qingyang, who was standing below, and said faintly, I met a disciple from the Heaven Mystery Pavilion, Ding Ruijia, who's Liang Ying's master's uncle. She said that you're from the Fu Dynasty. Fong Qingyang was dressed in a green robe. His handsome face and tall posture made him look like a jade tree that stood in the wind with a dazzling expression. He couldn't help but be startled when he heard this, and he revealed an expression of disbelief. Then his handsome face darkened, and he said coldly, Saintess, are you suspecting me? The people from the Pavilion of Divination suspect you, Sun Mingyue said indifferently. What do you think I should do? The saint still doesn't believe me. Fong Qingyang's expression was dark, his eyes gleaming as he glared at her. Sun Mingyue said, You were able to become a priest because you've been tested by the Holy Church, so I naturally believe you. That's why I want to ask you in detail. How did you offend the Pavilion of Divination? I have nothing to do with the Pavilion of Divination, Fong Qingyang said in a low voice. He secretly sighed in relief. It was good that the saintess believed him. He had always secretly admired the saintess and helped her wholeheartedly. It would be too sad if she suspected him because of a single sentence. Sun Mingyue said, The Pavilion of Divination wouldn't frame you for no reason. You must have offended them in some way. Could it be because I've killed people from the Fu Dynasty? Fong Qingyang said, I've killed many Fu dynasty powerhouses, so it's inevitable that these people have some connection with the Pavilion of Divination. It's hard to tell them apart. Sun Mingwen nodded slowly. It's very likely. Fang Qingyang frowned. Why would the people from the Pavilion of Divination tell you this, Saintus? It seems that the martial arts world of the Fu dynasty is wary of the Holy Church. Sun Mingwe frowned and said slowly, they're starting to suppress the Holy Church. That's troublesome. Fang Qingyang said, Saintus, they won't give up until they get what they want this time. Once the Pavilion of Divination says that the Holy Church will endanger the Li dynasty's imperial court, the hearts of the people. His heart sank at the thought. The Pavilion of Divination's words were too powerful. The lethality of one sentence was equivalent to the power of a dozen grandmasters. Sun Mingwe said, yes, I guess the Pavilion of Divination won't give up. They want to destroy the Holy Church's morale. How we fight back? Fang Qingyang said, they can steal the heavenly secrets, so it'll be troublesome if we really go against them. The disciples of the Pavilion of Divination could see the past and the future. If they said that the Holy Church of Light would endanger the Li dynasty in the future, no one would dare to ignore it. Even those who did not believe it would be doubtful. This was the authority of the Pavilion of Divination. Sun Mingwe said, we'll first announce that the Pavilion of Divination is spreading lies to mislead the public, and that the Holy Church of Light does not welcome disciples of the Pavilion of Divination. That's the only way. Fang Qingyang shook his head. They were forced to do so. Once they made such an announcement, it would be tantamount to becoming enemies with the Pavilion of Divination. As an enemy, they would not be fair and would inevitably say something unfavorable to the other party, which could weaken the Pavilion of Divination's prophecy about the Holy Church of Light. However, if they really did so, they would be completely hostile to the Pavilion of Divination. The Pavilion of Divination would definitely make a move. Sun Mingwe said faintly, we'll be enemies sooner or later. Don't think about getting lucky. We're not ready yet. Fang Qingyang sighed. Sun Mingwe said, we'll never be ready. We can act when the time is right. From now on, the responsibilities of the four great protectors will be heavier. You have to buck up and stand up at the critical moment. Yes. Fang Qingyang felt warm and gave a fist salute. Footsteps were heard, and Du Ying's voice was heard. Saintus, Ding Ruijia has spoken again. Come in, Sun Mingwe said. Du Ying entered quietly and gave a fist salute to Fang Qingyang. Then, she said, Ding Ruijia said that Priest Liu is from the Qiu dynasty. From the Qiu dynasty? Sun Mingwe laughed and said, all right, you can leave. Should I ask Priest Liu to come over? No need. Sun Mingwe shook her head. Du Ying curtsied and retreated. Fang Qingyang frowned. Who exactly is this Ding Ruijia? A disciple of the Pavilion of Divination, Sun Mingwe said faintly. Before the two of them could speak, Du Ying came out of the basilica again. Saintus, she said that junior brother Zhao De is from the Zheng dynasty. Interesting. Sun Mingwe laughed. You don't have to report this to me anymore. Yes. Du Ying answered crisply and walked away. Go to the Fu dynasty and have a look. Sun Mingwe frowned and said, see what happened to the Pavilion of Divination. Yes. Fang Qingyang nodded slowly. Sun Mingwe said, I feel that there's something strange about this Ding Ruijia. She then thought about what happened to Ding Ruijia and vaguely understood that Ding Ruijia had gone crazy and did not want to live alone. She wanted to cause a ruckus and then go to the outland to accompany her lover. That was why she acted recklessly. Fang Qingyang said, I'll go to the Fu dynasty to investigate. Chapter 31:20. As the sun set in the west, Chu Li sat in his house in Gale City. The gentle light illuminated his face, but his expression was uncertain. His disguise as Ding Ruijia to sow discord between the Prophecy Pavilion and the Holy Church of Light and block Ding Ruijia's way of talking to Sun Mingwe was only a temporary solution, but not a long-term solution. Ding Ruijia was still a huge threat. He had to get rid of her as soon as possible. If she exploded, he would be doomed eternally. Apart from his identity as Zhao Dai, he had many other identities such as Heavenly Demonic Sect, Green Deer Cliff, and Crouching Bull Mountain. If the Prophecy Pavilion saw through all of them and Ding Ruijia exposed them, he would not have a chance to turn things around. He frowned as he thought about this. Ding Ruijia could not predict all of this. It might be because of the 4 scriptures he cultivated, or because he had reincarnated and was able to suppress his fate from being seen through. Otherwise, Ding Ruijia would have made a move to prevent him from turning things around. He shook his head and sighed. Although he knew the whereabouts of the last 3 stages of the Spirit Crane technique, he did not have the energy to look for them. His top priority was to get rid of Ding Ruijia, but it was extremely difficult to do so now. The Prophecy Pavilion had protected her, and he could not sense her presence. When he thought of this, he disappeared in a flash and appeared outside the 5 Ultimate Universe formation. Ding Ruijia was nowhere to be seen. It was as if she had vanished in a thin air and was no longer in this world. He could not sense her at all. She must have been brought back to the Prophecy Pavilion by Zhuhua. It was as if there was a sword hanging above his head that could fall at any time. This feeling of having a fishbone stuck in one's throat was the most torturous and could drive one crazy. He stood at the peak of the mountain and looked down at the 5 Ultimate Universe formation. He sighed. It seemed like he had to make a trip to the Prophecy Pavilion. The next moment, he suddenly appeared in the main hall of the Secret Guardians Hall in Fairy's capital. The main hall was brightly lit, but Lu Yurong was alone. She sat quietly behind a desk in a white tunic, calmly flipping through the dossiers. The bright light illuminated her forehead like jade, and her eyes were as clear as autumn water. Lu Yurong looked up at Chu Li with a smile. Lu Yurong raised her head and looked at Chu Li. Her eyes revealed a hint of a smile. You don't come to me without a reason. What is it? Speak. Chu Li sat on the armchair. I want to inquire about the Destiny Pavilion. Lu Yurong stood up and left the desk. She came to sit opposite him. She was elegant and light, and a faint fragrance floated in the air. You've provoked the Tianji Pavilion again, haven't you? His ability to stir up trouble is truly top-notch. Chu Li glanced at her. Lu Yurong pursed her lips and chuckled. The Tianji Pavilion is a formidable force. You'd better not provoke them. Rumble. Back. Gong gong, Lu Yurong smiled and said, and the Goddess Attraction Mountain are famous for being mysterious and unpredictable. They can pry into the mysteries of heaven and see the future. How does it compare to the Stargazing Pavilion? Chu Li asked. Slightly inferior to the Stargazing Pavilion. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, however, the Stargazing Pavilion does not concern itself with worldly affairs, just like the Goddess Attraction Mountain. The Tianji Pavilion, on the other hand, has many disciples roaming the world, so their influence is greater. Where are these successors? The imperial court of the Fu dynasty has some of them, and so do the major sects, Lu Yurong said. After all, they have the ability to see the future, and all of them are honored guests. Chu Li furrowed his brows. Their disciples' martial arts are also extremely powerful. Yes, Lu Yurong slowly said. They are all people with extraordinary talents. They have a deep understanding of the way of heaven and earth, and they can learn formations with twice the results with half the effort. They also cultivate some antique martial arts. There are not many disciples in the Tianji Pavilion, but any one of them is a top-notch master. Chu Li asked, where is the Tianji Pavilion located? You want to cause trouble for the Tianji Pavilion? Lu Yurong shook her head and said, let me give you a piece of advice. Forget it, don't ask for trouble. Chu Li laughed coldly. Lu Yurong said, they can sense anyone who wants to cause trouble for them in advance and wait for them to exhaust themselves. The Tianji Pavilion is not an ordinary faction. You coming here like this is suicidal. Chu Li said, is there no one in the Tianji Pavilion who can stop them? Ordinary factions can't do anything to them. Lu Yurong shook her head and said, only the Goddess Attraction Mountain and the Stargazing Pavilion can. Chu Li scoffed. What techniques or treasures can stop their prying? If it's that easy to stop them, they wouldn't be so famous. Lu Yurong pondered and said, But there are some treasures, such as the relics of eminent monks, heaven and god pills, or the Titanium Temple and Tempest Temple's signature martial arts. Chuli frowned and said, "They can stop prying. These treasures and antique studies can block their own divination," Lu Yurong said. "But they can't cover everything. It's better than nothing, or else it'll be easy for them to see their future." Chu Li slowly nodded. He understood why Ding Ruijia could only tell that he was from the Ji dynasty and nothing else. It seemed that it had something to do with the titanium relic and Mahavarokuna's immobility scripture. Unfortunately, Mahavarokuna's immobility scripture was not strong enough, or else Ding Ruijia would not be able to see through it and would not be afraid of her. Chuli asked, "How can I stop their martial arts?" "That can't be helped." Lu Yurong spread her hands and said, "We can only rely on our own abilities. Their martial arts are profound, and with their unique talent, they can see through their opponent's moves in advance, which is very difficult to deal with." Chuli said, "Is there no way to stop them?" "No," Lu Yurong said. Chuli frowned and said, "You don't know where the prophecy pavilion is, do you?" Lu Yurong shook her head. "I advise you not to go. Since we've already become enemies, there's no point in compromising." Chuli said, "I can only strike first." Lu Yurong smiled faintly. "That's the Food Dynasty's faction, and it's the prophecy pavilion. Your ability to make enemies is nothing compared to mine." Chuli scoffed. "You're gloating." Lu Yurong smiled and said, "I'm just curious how you provoke them." Chuli shook his head and said nothing. Lu Yurong saw that she could not get an answer out of him, so she stopped smiling and said, "I heard that the Prophecy Pavilion's disciples often appear in the Cloud Dream Mountain." Chuli said the Cloud Dream Mountain. Lu Yurong said, "The Prophecy Pavilion is proficient in formations, and the faction must be protected by formations. Ordinary people can't see it even if they get close. I advise you not to waste your energy. Why not just offer a humble apology?" Chuli glared at her. Lu Yurong burst into laughter. "Isn't that too hard on you?" Chuli said, "If it works, it's fine if I offer a humble apology." He had Mahavarokuna's immobility scripture and the titanium Sarira, but Ko Cheong and the others did not. It was not a big deal for him to give in for now. If he lost face, then so be it. He would get it back in the future. However, he was Ding Ruijia's mortal enemy, so unless he committed suicide, there was no point in giving in. "Looks like it's a mortal enemy," Lu Yurong said. "Then you can only pray for your own good." Chu Li waved his hand. "Forget it. I'll leave first." "Wait." Lu Yurong quickly extended her hand. Chu Li looked at her. Lu Yurong said, "Prince Kong finally agreed, and the consort faked her death to escape." Chu Li nodded. It was expected that Prince Kong would eventually choose this. Lu Yurong frowned. The Holy Church of Light's disciples came to investigate. Chu Li looked at her without saying a word. Lu Yurong said, "These Holy Church of Light's disciples are impossible to guard against." Chu Li said, "I don't have the leisure to do that now." He understood what Lu Yurong meant. She wanted him to help find the Holy Church of Light's disciples. Lu Yurong smiled at him. Chapter 31:21. Chu Li saw her expression and showed a helpless expression. "You're going to use a favor just for the disciples of the Holy Church of Light?" "Yes," Lu Yurong nodded. "It's a disgrace to the Secret Guardian's Hall to let them wreak havoc in the fairies' capital." Chu Li looked at her and saw her determined expression. He nodded. "Fine, I'll help." Lu Yurong instantly smiled. Although her face could not be seen clearly, he could feel her joy. "Then let's start tomorrow." "No need for tomorrow," Chu Li said. "Tonight, I'll walk around the fairies' capital and see if I can find the disciples of the Holy Church of Light." "All right." Lu Yurong could not wait for it to happen as soon as possible. "Just the two of us," Chu Li said. "I don't want this to cause a commotion, and it can also help you establish your authority." "All right." Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. "It's rare for you to be so kind." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "Let's go, we'll start now." "All right." Lu Yurong stood up. The two exited the main entrance of the Secret Guardian's Hall and walked west along the main street. One was dignified and heroic while the other was graceful. Although her face was covered by a white veil, she still looked stunning. The two attracted a lot of attention as they walked together. The two strolled calmly. After walking for a mile, Chu suddenly pointed at a house opposite them. There are two of them here. Lu Yurong was startled and frowned at the ordinary house. The gate was not big, and the dark red door was obviously a declining family. Chu shook his head. Don't ask why or how. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Continue. He did not stop walking, and Lu Yurong did not ask anymore to prevent Chu from leaving. In the following half of the night, Chu and Lu Yurong walked around the entire fairy's capital. Chu pointed out 6 places in one go, and all of them had disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong was shocked. The fairy's capital was heavily guarded. Grandmasters who entered the fairy's capital would be closely monitored. However, 6 batches of disciples of the Holy Church of Light were still allowed in. This showed how terrifying the Holy Church of Light was. Chu and her returned to the main entrance of the imperial residence of King An. Before Chu entered the door, he said to Lu Yurong, "There are disciples of the Holy Church of Light in all 6 locations, but it's impossible to catch them all at once." Lu Yurong frowned as she muttered to herself. She also knew that it would be too greedy to catch all of them in one fell swoop. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light were not easy to deal with. With the strength of the Secret Guardian's Hall, it was already very difficult to capture 1 or 2 of them. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light would often perish together, so it would be extremely difficult to capture them alive. Chu said, "That's why you can only choose 1. At most, you can attack 2 at the same time. You can't be too greedy." "Where?" Lu Yurong asked. Chu said, "First, there are 3 masters from the Holy Church of Light hiding there. They have the highest cultivation level among all of us. If we can get rid of them, it'll be a big deal." "Sure," Lu Yurong agreed without hesitation. She believed in Chu judgment and believed that he would not harm her. Chu smiled. "I'm afraid that the people from the Secret Guardian's Hall might not be able to take them down. It's time for you to show off your abilities." A disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong shook her head lightly. Chu said, "In my opinion, you guys might not be able to take them down." Chu had a full understanding of the power of the secret technique of Great Light. It was truly shocking. What was more terrifying was that their faith was firm and they were not afraid of death. They could unleash their extraordinary strength. Lu Yurong smiled. "Are you going to help?" Chu shook his head. Lu Yurong said, "Are you really going to attack the Prophecy Pavilion?" "I want to go and see for myself," Chu said. Lu Yurong chuckled. "I advise you not to ask for trouble." Chu frowned and remained silent. He did not want to provoke a faction like the Prophecy Pavilion, but Ding Ruijia's existence was like a fishbone in his throat. If Ding Ruijia could give up on revenge, he would not provoke her. However, Ding Ruijia would never let him go. He could only strike first. After all, passive defense was not a long-term solution. Chu returned to Gale Branch and sent 2 Gale Branch disciples to the Cloud Dream Mountain. Then, he returned to Fairy's capital and hid in the dark to observe Lu Yurong's actions. The night was hazy. Lu Yurong led a group of men in black and quietly sneaked under the shadow of the wall. Their footsteps were light and silent. They arrived at a slightly run-down house and jumped over the wall. Other than Lu Yurong, there were 10 other grandmasters. 6 of them were masters from May Air Courtyard, and the other 4 were from other courtyards. They were all elites of the Secret Guardian's Hall. Lu Yurong stood on a rooftop far away and looked down from above. 10 grandmasters silently flipped over the wall and landed in the courtyard. Lu Yurong said in a low voice, "They've escaped. Quickly chase after them." She saw the 4 gray-clothed men fluttering away from the small courtyard and speeding off into the distance. After letting out a shout, she frowned. These 4 men were so vigilant. It was impossible to surround them secretly. They would definitely cause a big commotion. If they could not take them down in the end, the Secret Guardian's Hall would be embarrassed and she would lose face. Although she had established her prestige when she dealt with Prince Kong last time and no one dared to act presumptuously, it was still far from enough. She needed enough victories to accumulate enough prestige. She could only rely on scaring people for a while, and it would not last long. When she thought about this, she suddenly flashed and turned into a white light. She instantly blocked the 4 men in gray and used the Empyrean fairy palm to attack 4 times in an instant. Bam, 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 bam. The 4 men in gray turned over and retreated. They did not expect Lu Yurong's Empyrean fairy palm to be so powerful. With this delay, the 10 people from the Secret Guardians Hall surrounded them and fought fiercely. The 4 men in gray immediately activated their secret skills. Suddenly, the aura around them was turbulent, for rays of moonlight fell on them from the sky, causing their bodies to emit a luster. Their bodies were as warm as jade. Their body movement technique suddenly sped up, and their palm energy became violent and unstoppable. Use your secret skills, Lu Yurong said in a low voice. Even if it was 10 against 4, they would not be able to suppress them without using their secret skills. The 10 masters from the Secret Guardians Hall activated their secret skills, but before they could complete it, the 4 elders in gray suddenly joined forces and pushed out a palm. The palm energy of the 4 people overlapped and was invincible. The 4 masters from the Secret Guardians Hall suddenly flew out and spat out arrows of blood in the air. Lu Yurong's face darkened. She floated to block the gap and attacked 4 times in a row. The 4 palm energy overlapped and collided with the palm energy of the 4 men in gray. Bang! In a thunderous sound, Lu Yurong fluttered backward. Her white robe fluttered as if she was in a strong wind. She had already suffered some internal injuries. The power of the 4 people combined was beyond her imagination. The remaining 6 grandmasters attacked, but were easily dodged by the 4 men in gray. Their body movement technique became as fast as ghosts, and it was extremely difficult to hit them. Lu Yurong's killing intent surged. The more powerful they were, the more they must stay. They must not be allowed to leave Fairy's capital safely. Otherwise, it would be a joke if the Holy Church of Light did as they pleased in Fairy's capital. Bam, 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 bam. The 4 men in gray once again joined forces and attacked the remaining 6 people. The masters from the Secret Guardians Hall had already used their secret skills and were evenly matched with them. Chapter 31:22. Lu Yurong saw this, and her expression changed. She shouted, "Oh no!" Even the 4 Secret Guardians Hall powerhouses who were injured knew that something was wrong. This meant that the disciples of the Holy Church of Light were about to ascend to the Outland. Lu Yurong could not care less. She snorted softly, and her body instantly turned into a blurry shadow, hitting the 4 of them in the blink of an eye. No matter how fast they were unable to avoid this palm strike. Each of them suffered a blow from her Empyrean fairy palm. Lu Yurong was sure that if they were hit by the 9th Heaven Mystic Fairy Palm, they would be severely injured or even killed. However, after the 4 of them were hit, the light on their bodies became brighter. It was so bright that it was blinding to look at them directly. Lu Yurong frowned in confusion. She turned to look at the 10 masters from the Secret Guardians Hall. They were also suspicious. The 4 of them suddenly let out a long howl almost at the same time. The howl was like a rolling tide, shaking the blood of the Secret Guardians Hall masters and causing their expressions to change slightly. Lu Yurong frowned. The 4 of them seemed to be even more powerful than before. As time passed, they seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. This did not make sense. The 4 of them were like torches, burning brighter and brighter. Immediately, she understood the principles behind the 4's secret techniques. She burned like a torch, burning more and more fiercely. After the whistling sound, the radiance on the 4 people's bodies suddenly became even brighter. It was so bright that one couldn't look at it directly, like a scorching sun. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and the 4 of them turned into 4 beams of light that shot into the sky. Suddenly, a door of light appeared in the night sky. It was illusory and clear. It was huge and vast. It slowly opened, and the vague silhouettes of palaces and people could be seen inside the door. It seemed like there were people flying inside, for beams of light shot to the door, and 4 figures appeared. This strange phenomenon startled the people of the fairies' capital. They all raised their heads to take a look. Those who understood already knew that the gates of the sky beyond heaven had been opened. Someone had ascended to the sky beyond heaven, and it was a joyous occasion. Chu Li laughed in the dark. Lu Yurong had failed this time. Lu Yurong stared at the door of light in the sky. Her brows were tightly knitted together, and her eyes flashed with anger. They had embarrassed themselves this time. Moreover, as soon as the light door appeared, the rest of the Holy Church of Light's disciples knew that they should not even think about attacking again. This time, the purge operation was considered a complete failure. Chu Li saw Lu Yurong's expression through the omniscient mirror and could not help but smile. He was happy to see Lu Yurong being humiliated. As the sun set, Chu Li looked at the cloud dream mountain in front of him and was filled with emotions. This mountain didn't look very tall. At first glance, there were only bare rocks and no trees. There was really no desire to climb it, and one would want to turn around and leave after looking at it. The bare rocks faintly emitted an oppressive chill, desolate and barren. However, Chu Li could tell that this mountain was just a smokescreen. It was shrouded in a huge formation, so it was impossible to climb up. One would have to go around in circles and would never be able to find the way up the mountain. For such a formation to be used as a disguise, it was definitely from a famous sect. Moreover, it was a large sect with a long history. Ordinary sects did not have such a powerful formation. This was the Dream Cloud Mountain, where the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries was located. At first, he suspected that Lu Yurong was lying to him. However, after seeing the appearance of the Cloud Dream Mountain, he believed her. He used the omniscient mirror to observe the formation. Since it was covered by the formation, the omniscient mirror could not see through it. He could only observe the general situation. It was like looking at flowers in the fog, or the moon in the water. Everything was hazy. He looked at it for a long time, but he couldn't figure out what kind of formation it was. It seemed to be a combination of several formations. He did not understand what this formation was, but he knew that it must be very powerful. His intuition warned him not to go near it. After watching for a while, Chu Li suddenly disappeared and returned to Gale Branch. Just as he sat in his room in Gale City, footsteps could be heard coming from outside. Ko Chiong's voice could be heard. "Master, you came at the right time. Come in," Chu Li said. Ko Chiong opened the door and entered the room. He gave a fist salute to Chu Li, who was sitting on the armchair. "Young master, something bad has happened." Chu Li pointed at the armchair opposite him. Ko Chiong sat opposite him and said, "Recently, I've heard rumors about you from the Great Light Peak." "What rumor?" Chu Li asked casually. "He said that you're not from Dali," Ko Chiong said. Chu Li could not help but laugh. "If I'm not from the Li dynasty, where am I from? Some say they're from the Zheng dynasty, some say they're from the Qiu dynasty, and some say they're from the Fu dynasty." Ko Chiong shook his head and said, "There are many different kinds, but many people are curious about which country young master is from." Chu Li's expression changed slightly. He was definitely not the one who spread the rumor. Back then, he said he was from the Zheng dynasty to confuse the public and to shut Ding Ruijia's mouth so that she would never see Sun Mingyue again. It seemed like his plan was a success, but Chu Li sensed a conspiracy when he heard this rumor. Some said he was from the Zheng dynasty, some said he was from the Qiu dynasty, and some said he was from the Fu dynasty. This gave everyone the impression that he was not from the Li dynasty. Most importantly, Sun Mingyue could see through the hearts of the others and know whether they were loyal or not, but Chu Li could not be seen through by Sun Mingyue. As the saint of the Holy Church of Light, Sun Mingyue held a high position and was almost second to only one person. She even ruled the Holy Church of Light alone. Naturally, she had the common problem of people in high positions, being suspicious and distrustful of others. If these rumors reached Sun Mingyue's ears, no matter how determined she would still want to investigate him. Chu Li frowned and pondered. Once Sun Mingyue investigated carefully, she would inevitably find some clues. This must be Ding Ruijia's conspiracy. She beat him at his own game and tricked him again. "Young master, these rumors are a little strange." Ko Chiong frowned and said, "Could it be that someone from the Holy Church of Light wants to deal with you, young master?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded. "How will we find that person?" Coach Xiong said. Since they've made a move, we must retaliate. Chu Li said, I'll return to the Great Light Peak immediately. Coach Xiong looked worried. Young master, are these rumors really that powerful? Chu Li frowned and said, That depends on what the saint thinks. Then be careful, young master, Coach Xiong said. Chu Li waved his hand and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared at the foot of the Great Light Peak and glided up the peak to the Divine Light Basilica. Doing was standing on steps. When she saw him, her eyes flashed, and she finally turned around to report to Sun Mingwei. A moment later, Du Ying stood on the steps and gave a fist salute. Junior brother Du, come in. Chu Li gave a fist salute and stepped into the Divine Light Basilica. When he arrived at the center, he looked at Sun Mingwei, who was sitting behind the table. Sun Mingwei was dressed in white and had a white veil covering her face. She looked at him calmly. Chu Li said, Saint, I'm here to ask for forgiveness. What kind of punishment? Sun Mingwei asked. Her eyes were cold as she looked at Chu Li with a probing gaze. Chu Li said, I've offended the prophecy pavilion and caused great trouble for the Holy Church. Sun Mingwei said, Ding Ruijia. Chu Li nodded slowly and said, I know how powerful the prophecy pavilion is. Now that I've experienced it, it's really scary. You're here because of the rumors, right? Sun Mingwei asked. Chu Li said, Everyone's words can melt gold. No matter how upright I am, I can't stand this. Now, everyone thinks that I'm not from the Li dynasty and that I'm a traitor of the Holy Church. If the prophecy pavilion does this to the Holy Church, there'll be endless trouble. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 31-23. You're here for this? Sun Mingwei frowned. Chu Li replied, I'm worried that if I don't come, I'll really become a traitor and be hunted by the Holy Church. Do you not trust me that much? Sun Mingwei said impatiently. Or are you feeling guilty? Chu Li smiled bitterly. Saint. Sun Mingwei waved her hand. Do you really think I won't trust you just because of some rumors? Chu Li replied, Rumors make a tiger out of tiger. I have to be careful. After all, I've only been in the church for a short time, and my foundation is still shallow. It's inevitable that people don't trust me. Although you've only been in the church for a short time, you're no longer an ordinary disciple. You're a branch leader and have naturally been inspected by the Holy Church, so you can rest assured. However, the prophecy pavilion is indeed powerful, so you can't ignore them. Chu Li said, I'm worried that the prophecy pavilion will vent their anger on the Holy Church. Let them. Sun Mingwei said, The Holy Church is never afraid of making enemies. Chu Li nodded and was relieved. It seemed that Sun Mingwei did not suspect him for the time being. He blamed Ding Ruijia for being too impatient. With so many rumors falling on him, it was obvious that they were targeting him. Sun Mingwei knew the grudge between him and Ding Ruijia the best, so she naturally would not believe Ding Ruijia's words. Chu Li asked, Is there any secret skill that can restrain the prophecy pavilion? The prophecy pavilion's secret skill comes from the stargazing pavilion. They're ranked second among the 8 major sections. Sun Mingwei shook her head. For the time being, there's no way to restrain them. Only those who cultivate Buddha's secret skills or have secret treasures can resist their prying. You've cultivated Mahavairocana's immobility scripture, so you don't have to be afraid. This was also why she did not trust Ding Ruijia. Zhao De cultivated Mahavairocana's immobility scripture, so she could not see through his thoughts. The prophecy pavilion could not see Zhao De's fate either. It was obviously nonsense to say that there was a traitor. Chu Li frowned. There's a secret skill that can't be restrained in this world. The stargazing pavilion must know, but they won't spread it, Sun Mingwei said. Chu Li sighed. Do I have to wait for Ding Ruijia to cause me trouble? It can't be helped, Sun Mingwei said. She was also worried about Chu Li. A person like Ding Ruijia was indeed difficult to deal with. The most important thing was the secret skill of heavenly prophecy, which could predict good or bad luck. If Ding Ruijia wanted to harm her, she could predict it and avoid it in advance. No matter how powerful Zhao De was, it would be useless. He would not be able to find Ding Ruijia. The tricky thing was that Ding Ruijia's relatives were all dead, so she had no weaknesses. She was not like Zhao Dai, whose Gale branch was his biggest weakness. If Zhao Dai wanted to find him, he did not have to search all over the world. He just had to deal with Gale branch directly, and he would naturally appear. Chu Li shook his head in resignation. Sun Mingyue said, "Are you regretting accepting the mission?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded without hesitation. Sun Mingyue snorted and said, "You're quite frank." Chu Li replied, "I can't hide my thoughts. If I hadn't killed Liang Yinga, I wouldn't have gotten myself into so much trouble. At the end of the day, I've taken the blame for you, Saint." Sun Mingyue said with a faint smile, "Don't you want to be the scapegoat?" Chu Li sighed. "Now that things have come to this, I have no choice but to bear the responsibility. It's good that you understand." Sun Mingyue rolled her eyes at him and said, "Don't even think about it. Gather? Grasshopper? Fluttering wand sang? Joyful wand sang? Fluttering wand sang?" Chu Li said, "The Holy Church of Light's masters don't dare to kill her." "Saint, didn't you send a lot of masters?" "She can predict it." Sun Mingyue shook her head. "It doesn't matter how many masters there are, and the more masters there are, the easier it is for her to predict it. So I can only deal with it passively?" Chu Li frowned. "I can't kill her, and I can't hide from her. It's troublesome." Sun Mingyue said, "Take it slow, don't rush." Chu Li took a deep breath. Du Ying's voice was heard from beneath their feet. "Saint, the Method King is here." "Invite him in," Sun Mingyue said. Fang Qingyang, who was dressed in a green robe, slowly walked over. He was handsome and elegant. He gave a fist salute. "Greetings, Saint." Chu Li gave him a fist salute. Fang Qingyang sized Chu Li up and said, "I didn't expect branch leader Zhao to be here too." Chu Li said, "Saint, I'll take my leave first." Sun Mingyue waved her hand. "Wait for a while." Chu Li retreated to the side and said nothing. Fang Qingyang said, "Saint, I'm afraid." "Why? You don't want to go to the Ji dynasty?" Sun Mingyue frowned as she sized him up. "Tell me why." "I don't think a little girl is worth my time," Fang Qingyang said. Sun Mingyue scoffed. "A little girl's martial arts is extraordinary. We've sent so many masters but still couldn't take her down. Now that her reputation is growing, if we don't kill her, we'll become a joke in the Holy Church of Light." "Just ignore her," Fang Qingyang said. "She's just a small faction. It's not worth mentioning. She's grown up and has great potential." Sun Mingyue frowned. "If we don't get rid of her, she'll become even more powerful. In the end, no one in the Holy Church of Light will be able to control her. She's not that powerful." Fang Qingyang shook his head and smiled. "She's just a little girl with a shallow foundation. Her achievements are limited." Sun Mingyue tilted her head and looked at him. Fang Qingyang looked a little embarrassed. Sun Mingyue said, "Method King, you've always tried your best to catch a rabbit, but you're belittling that girl today. It's very unusual. You know her, right? Don't lie to me. You should know that I can tell." "Yes, to be honest, Saint, she's my savior." Fang Qingyang sighed. Sun Mingyue asked, "Savior?" "I was ambushed and injured by a disciple of the Tempest Temple," Fang Qingyang said. "I almost lost my life, but thanks to her, I managed to survive." Sun Mingyue laughed. "How interesting. She's actually your savior." Fang Qingyang shook his head helplessly. "That's why I'm in a difficult position. I can't do anything about it." "That's true," Sun Mingyue said. "If you attack your savior, it'll be too much for you." Fang Qingyang said, "Saint, I'll save her once." Sun Mingyue shook her head. "We can't let her go. She killed our disciple, so we have no choice but to kill her." Fang Qingyang said, "But it's a personal matter for her to save you, but we can't ignore the public's duty because of it." "She's a big problem," Sun Mingyue said. "Since you can't go, I'll send someone else, so you won't be put in a difficult position." Fang Qingyang's face tensed up. Sun Mingyue turned to look at Chu Li. "Zhao Dai, you go. Who are you going to kill this time?" Chu Li asked. "Li Hanyan, a disciple of Snow Lunar Pavilion. She has a close relationship with Chu Li," Sun Mingyue said. "So we have to end this quickly and don't let Chu Li interfere." "Saint, you promised me that you won't be on any errands this year." Chu Li shook his head. He did not say anything, but his heart sank. In the end, he could not delay it for long. Sun Mingyue's foresight was too sharp, and she was going to be ruthless. Sun Mingyue said, "This is a great merit. If you can get it, you'll be promoted to patrol." Chu Li shook his head. "I don't want to kill a woman. Ding Ruijia is a woman." Sun Mingyue scoffed. Chu Li said, "Saint, you should find someone else." Sun Mingyue frowned at him, her gaze gradually turning cold. Chapter 31-24. Chu Li coughed softly. "My saint, I want to enter the Sutra Library and see if I can find a secret skill that can restrain the Divine Oracle Pavilion. Killing a young lady is not worth mentioning. It's better to send someone else. The Holy Church is full of masters. I won't make a difference." "You." Sun Mingyue's gaze softened as she looked at him. "You're getting bolder. Being so presumptuous in front of Fong Qingyang and ruining her reputation. She was indeed filled with murderous intent." Chu Li said, "Actually, there's no need to kill her." Sun Mingyue said coldly, "She killed the Holy Church's patrol. About that." Chu Li turned to look at Fong Qingyang. Fong Qingyang hurriedly said, "My saint, it was the patrol who attacked first. She can't be blamed. She can't just wait to die, can she? It doesn't matter if she kills Li Hanyin or not. It won't damage the Holy Church's reputation." "Priest," Sun Mingyue scoffed. "You're the Holy Church's priest." Fong Qingyang hurriedly said, "How about I make her our high official?" "High official?" Sun Mingyue frowned as she pondered. Fong Qingyang stared at her eagerly and pleaded, "My saint, I can relinquish my position as priest. Looks like you've fallen for her." Sun Mingyue snorted as she looked at Fong Qingyang. Fong Qingyang shook his head. "I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. She has a grudge against us, but you're indebted to her. This is troublesome." Sun Mingyue frowned as she pondered. She got up and paced at the bottom of the steps with her hands behind her back. Chu Li glanced at Fong Qingyang and sighed inwardly. He did not expect Fong Qingyang to really fall for Li Hanyin. He thought that the world was full of strange things. He treated Li Hanyin more like a younger sister, so when he saw that Fong Qingyang liked her, he did not feel jealous. Unfortunately, Fong Qingyang could only dream about it. It would not come true. The Holy Church of Light and Snow Lunar Pavilion were sworn enemies, so it was impossible for them to be together. More importantly, he knew that Li Hanyin had no feelings for Fong Qingyang. It was Fong Qingyang's unrequited love. He had heard from Li Hanyin that she had saved someone, so he saw Fong Qingyang's face in her mind. He wondered if Fong Qingyang had used a honey trap, but after some thought, he felt that Fong Qingyang would not resort to such means, so he did not remind her. Now, it seemed that Fong Qingyang had fallen in love with Li Hanyin at first sight. He frowned and felt a headache coming on. There was a fine line between love and hate. Fong Qingyang had fallen for Li Hanyin, but Li Hanyin had not fallen for Fong Qingyang. In the end, it was very likely that Fong Qingyang's love would turn into hate, and he would seek revenge on Li Hanyin in a frenzy. Although the Snow Lunar Pavilion was strong, it was far from being a match for the Holy Church of Light. Now, that Fong Qingyang was protecting Li Hanyin, if they had a falling out in the future, he would probably want to destroy the Snow Lunar Pavilion the most. He was thinking the worst of people, but it was also possible that Fong Qingyang was still infatuated and devoted. Fong Qingyang stared at Sun Mingyue without saying a word, his expression tense. After a short while, Sun Mingyue stopped and said indifferently, "All right, she can be spared from death if she becomes our revered elder." Fong Qingyang was overjoyed. "Thank you, Saint. Thank you, Saint." "There's no need to thank me. Convince her first." Sun Mingyue said, "Priest, convincing her isn't as easy as you think." "Yes," Fong Qingyang said, "but I'll definitely convince her." Sun Mingyue waved a hand. "I'm making an exception because of your hard work and contributions. There won't be a next time. If she refuses to come to her senses, don't blame me for taking her life." "Yes." Fong Qingyang nodded sternly. Sun Mingyue glared at Chu Li. "Next time, I'll do it myself." Fong Qingyang smiled bitterly and sighed inwardly. He really had no confidence in convincing Li Hanyin. Although they had only known each other for a short time, he understood her stubborn temper. It would be extremely difficult to convince her to become a revered elder of the Holy Church of Light. It was originally a delaying tactic to stall for time so that the saint would forget about her, but it seemed like the saint had seen through it. Sun Mingyue waved a hand, and Fang Qingyang tactfully gave a fist salute. Chu Li also did a fist salute. "Saint, can I go to the Sutra Tower?" "Go, go," Sun Mingyue said impatiently. Chu Li left as well. Fang Qingyang was waiting outside the basilica. "Priest." Chu Li gave a fist salute. Fang Qingyang gestured for the two to go together. The two went down the steps and walked along the path down mountain. "Sigh, branch leader Zhao, thank you." Fang Qingyang sighed. Chu Li said, "Priest, you're too kind. I really didn't want to kill a little girl." Li Hanyan is no ordinary master. Fang Qingyang shook his head. "If we can recruit her, it'll be of great benefit to our holy church." Chu Li smiled. "Yes, then I wish Wang success." Fang Qingyang smiled bitterly. Chu Li asked, "Is Li Hanyan really that powerful?" Fang Qingyang nodded slowly. "Even I might not be able to defeat her. That's rare." Chu Li smiled. "Snow Lunar Pavilion swordsmanship is very ordinary, right? She's related to the White Shroud Shindao, Du Feng. Her martial arts were probably taught to her by Du Feng." Fang Qingyang sighed. "Her swordsmanship is outstanding, which makes up for her lack of cultivation level." Chu Li nodded slowly. "Du Feng, no wonder. Have you found any traces of Du Feng? He's hidden in the Fu dynasty, and there are countless mountains in the Fu dynasty. Who can find him?" Fang Qingyang shook his head. So the disciples of the Holy Church gave up on the search. "I'm also worried that if we kill Li Hanyan, we'll provoke Du Feng." Chu Li smiled. "Why are we afraid of Du Feng?" Fang Qingyang said in a low voice. "The Holy Church has many masters, but there are very few who can really block an enlightened master's attack. I'm just afraid that Du Feng will secretly attack us. The Holy Church will suffer heavy losses." Chu Li said, "I really want to fight with Du Feng. I advise you to give up on this idea." Fang Qingyang shook his head. "Branch leader Zhao, although your martial arts is strong, you're no match for Du Feng." Chu Li showed an unconvinced expression. The two unknowingly walked halfway up the mountain. Fang Qingyang fist saluted and left. Chu Li went to the first peak. This time, he made up his mind to read through the sutra library and store all the books in his mind. He wanted to see if he could find a way to restrain the Divine Design Pavilion. The world was so big, he did not believe that no one could restrain the Divine Design Pavilion. As the sun set, the afterglow shone on Gale Branch. The martial arts field in Gale Branch was bustling with activity. A group of disciples in the branch were training on the martial arts field. Some practiced with blades, some with swords, and some with fists and kicks. 10 of them were grandmasters, and 20 were innate masters. Ko Qiong and the other 2 were also training on the martial arts field, leading by example. A figure suddenly appeared on top of the wall, looking down at the crowd. It was Ding Ruijia. Her black robe fluttered in the wind. Her beautiful face was pale, without a trace of blood. It was obvious that her old injuries had not healed. She stared at the crowd indifferently, as if she was looking at 30 dead people. Ko Qiong and the other 2 were extremely vigilant. They felt something was wrong, and when they saw Ding Ruijia, their expressions changed. Ding Ruijia disappeared from the top of the wall in a flash. The next moment, she appeared behind an innate master from Gale Branch. She lightly hit him with her palm. This hit was enough to take his life. "Stop!" Ko Qiong shouted. Ding Ruijia ignored him and hit him with her palm. The innate master immediately fell to the ground. He stopped breathing and could not fight back. She flashed behind another innate master and hit him again. Chapter 31:25. Ko Qiong opened his palm, and the powder fell from his palm. He had crushed a jade pendant. According to young master, it was the key to the formation. Once it was crushed, the formation would be activated. Looking at the mountains in front of him, Ko Qiong could not help but admire the wonders of the formation. He had long heard of the formation, and now it seemed that it was indeed worthy of its reputation. Using a strange step technique, Ko Cheong quickly came to the side of the dead Gale Branch disciple. He took out a spirit blessing pill and stuffed it into the disciple's mouth. Then, he patted the pill a few times to help the pill dissolve, and his heartbeat quickly recovered. He did not know that it was a spirit blessing pill. His appearance had changed, so it was difficult to associate it with the spirit blessing pill. When the disciple's breathing and heartbeat returned, Ko Cheong secretly sighed in relief. He took out another jade pendant and crushed it gently. Chu Li was flipping through the books in the sutra library. He flipped through one book after another, starting from the first floor. He flipped through the books at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he had flipped through a book. Even so, he still felt that it was slow. Suddenly, he felt his heart palpitate. He put down the book and walked to a corner. When he saw that there was no one around, he suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in Gale Branch. Ko Cheong and the others had already left the formation. Ko Cheong sent them away and told them not to stay and watch. He, Lu Shu, and Feng Wuji sat in a gazebo and looked at Ding Ruijia, who was moving quickly in the field. Ding Ruijia's expression was calm. She did not show any signs of panic and seemed to be deep in thought. When they saw Chu Li, Ko Cheong and the others quickly stood up and fist saluted him. Chu Li waved his hand. "You guys can go. Young master, let's stay and help?" Ko Cheong quickly asked. He knew how terrifying Ding Ruijia was. Chu Li said, "You guys will only drag me down if you stay. I will have to worry about my future." "Yes." Ko Cheong and the others smiled bitterly and fist saluted helplessly before leaving the courtyard. Only Chu Li and Ding Ruijia were left in Gale Branch. The others had left, so it was empty. Ding Ruijia walked even faster, as if she was riding the wind. However, Chu Li knew that she was about to use her secret technique to escape from the formation. This secret technique of the Prophecy Pavilion was truly profound. It allowed one to become one with the heavens and not be trapped by the formation. Even if there were all sorts of consequences, it was still shockingly powerful. Chu Li was extremely envious of this set of secret skills. If he could learn it, he would be able to break into the Prophecy Pavilion. Any big sect would be as easy as walking on flat ground. Coupled with his heavenly demonic power, he would be able to reap great rewards. He narrowed his eyes. If the array formation that he had painstakingly set up could not trap Ding Ruijia, then there was really nothing he could do. He was good at turning negative into positive. Gale Branch was not only his weakness, but also the most fatal bait. He had predicted that Ding Ruijia would come again, so he had already set up a formation to wait for her. As the descendant of the Prophecy Pavilion, Ding Ruijia should be able to predict that Gale Branch was in danger and that it was a trap. However, Chu Li was certain that she would not be able to reject the offer because he did not have any other weaknesses other than Gale Branch. If she wanted to find him, she could not possibly go to the Great Light Peak. Ding Ruijia must have thought that he couldn't do anything to her because of her secret skills. Even if she knew it was a trap, she still had to take it. Everything was as he had expected. Ding Ruijia really came. This array was the most complicated one he had ever seen. It was called the Yin and Yang formation. Everything inside the formation was reversed. Yin and Yang were reversed, and the illusion and reality were reversed. It formed a wonderful world. The principle was simple, but the formation was extremely complicated. If one wanted to break out of it, one would have to completely reverse one's thoughts. This was something that almost no one could do. Chu Li saw a stone in the west, but it was actually in the east. He saw that he should go east, but he was actually going west. He saw that he should go up, but he was actually going down. Everything was reversed. Ding Ruijia could not see clearly because she was inside the formation. She felt dizzy as she turned around. She was about to use her secret skill to escape from the formation. Chu Li glided into the formation and silently shot out a petrifying finger. Ding Ruijia's intuition was amazing. She sensed danger and quickly dodged to the right. TSS. Ding Ruijia's body stiffened. Her intuition for danger was amazing. Unfortunately, she was inside the formation and did not have time to use her secret skill. She was still affected by the formation. She should have dodged to the left, but she dodged to the right instead. As a result, she was hit by the petrifying finger. Chuli took advantage of the moment when she froze to launch a few more petrifying fingers. Then, he suddenly appeared beside her. Before she could react, he instantly destroyed her dantian and crippled her cultivation. Ding Ruijia fell to the ground and stared at him coldly. Her expression was still calm. She was not angry at being restrained or having her martial arts crippled. Instead, there was a hint of relief. Her face became even paler. There was a hint of purple on her face. Her vitality had dimmed. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief. He was really lucky to have set up such a meticulously planned trap. All his previous frustrations were instantly released. He looked at Ding Ruijia's pale face and furrowed his brows. Her lifespan was greatly reduced. After her martial arts was crippled, her body became even worse. Her vitality was like a candle in the wind. It was shaky and could be extinguished at any time. His mind turned quickly. He deduced that Ding Ruijia's secret skill must have consumed her lifespan. This was understandable. The more powerful the secret skill, the greater the cost. This was the rule of heaven and earth. Otherwise, the Prophecy Pavilion would have dominated the world if they could use these powerful secret skills at will. Chuli said in a low voice, "Senior Ding, why do you have to do this?" Ding Ruijia's voice was hoarse. "In the end, I still lost to you." Chuli said, "Why do you have to do this? I've lived long enough." "This is fine," Ding Ruijia said. "Just give me a quick death." Chuli said, "I want to ask if the Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill can be passed down to me." Ding Ruijia looked surprised. "You want to secretly learn the Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill?" Chuli nodded. "It's very powerful. I advise you to give up." Ding Ruijia said, "The Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill requires a person with unique aptitude to cultivate it. If the aptitude is not up to par, you'll die instantly from a backlash." Chuli said, "I think I have the aptitude to cultivate it." Ding Ruijia smiled faintly and did not comment. Chuli could already see what she was thinking. He knew that she did not care. However, he frowned. Ding Ruijia was not lying. The Prophecy Pavilion's secret skill required sufficient aptitude to cultivate. Forcefully cultivating it would lead to death. There was no chance of survival. Therefore, the Prophecy Pavilion was not worried about the secret skill being leaked. Chuli sighed. "How many secret skills does Senior Ding have? Do you think I will pass them to you? Are there no secret manuals? Even if there are secret manuals, you won't be able to cultivate them." Ding Ruijia said, "These secret manuals require the Prophecy Pavilion's basic heart technique to cultivate. I advise you to give up." Chuli frowned. "Are there no exceptions?" "No," Ding Ruijia said. Her expression was calm, as if she was not affected by the current situation. She was indeed determined to die. Chuli could not do anything about it. However, he also discovered that the secret manual she hid was in her ravine. Was the Prophecy Pavilion's basic heart technique? Chuli asked. "The Heavenly Heart Technique," Ding Ruijia said. Chapter 31:26. Chuli asked, "Does cultivating the Heavenly Heart Technique require special qualities? If you don't have any special aptitude, you will definitely die if you cultivate it." Ding Ruijia looked at him indifferently and said, "You dare to cultivate it? There's no harm in trying, right?" Chuli asked. Ding Ruijia smiled faintly. "That depends on your luck. Once it's not suitable for cultivation, you'll die. There's no way you'll get lucky. Besides, it's not like your injuries will worsen bit by bit. You'll die instantly." Chuli frowned. He didn't expect the Heavenly Heart Sutra to be so vicious. Once one didn't meet the requirements, they would die. Ding Ruijia said, "If you want to die, I won't stop you." Chuli asked, "Don't tell me that the Prophecy Pavilion's martial arts have no way to restrain it." "Yes," Ding Ruijia said indifferently. "The heaven-defying art is at Goddess Attraction Mountain." Chuli frowned and remained silent. Ding Ruijia said, "The disciples of Goddess Attraction Mountain almost never appear, nor do they oppose the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets. Thus, having them is equivalent to not having them. As long as the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets does not go overboard, Goddess Attraction Mountain will not interfere. Chuli said, in that case, only Goddess Attraction Mountain can keep the Prophecy Pavilion in check. Yes, Ding Ruijia said lightly. Chuli knew from her mind that the Destiny Pavilion and Goddess Attraction Mountain had a very deep relationship. The key to this relationship was the Stargazing Pavilion. The founder of the Stargazing Pavilion was a woman, and this woman's husband was the founder of Goddess Attraction Mountain. The Pavilion of Divine Mysteries' secret arts originated from the Stargazing Pavilion and were created by its disciples. Since the Immortal Attraction Mountain could restrain the Stargazing Pavilion, it could naturally restrain the Pavilion of Divine Mysteries as well. Chuli shook his head. The relationship between them was very complicated. If he could not see Ding Ruijia's mind, it would be very difficult to understand. Chuli remained silent. It seemed that there was no hope of restraining the Prophecy Pavilion. He could only cultivate the secret skills of the Prophecy Pavilion. However, the Heavenly Heart technique was so powerful that it was an extremely risky gamble. He would have to think carefully about whether or not to cultivate it. If he could cultivate the Heavenly Heart Sutra, he felt that there would be endless benefits. At the very least, he would be able to increase the might of the nature restoration manifestation. He might even be able to pry into the mysteries of heaven. Thinking of this, his heart was burning. Ding Ruijia said, if you kill me, be careful of the revenge of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. Their disciples were killed, and they can even find out who the murderer is. Chuli stared at her. Ding Ruijia lightly said, this isn't a threat. I'm just telling you lest you regret it in the future. Chuli asked, Senior Ding, do you think I'll show you mercy? No, Ding Ruijia said. She knew how strong Chu Li's killing intent was. He had to get rid of her, or else she would not stop killing him. Both of them would fight to the death, and only one of them could live. Zhao De would not let go of this opportunity. Chuli asked, Senior Ding, do you have any last words? That's all. Ding Ruijia said faintly. I'm leaving first. You'll follow me later. That might not be the case. Chuli smiled. I have a request, Ding Ruijia said. Chuli said, speak. Ding Ruijia said, I want to be buried with Shi Xiao. Chuli was surprised. Your senior brother? My senior brother died a long time ago, but his grave is still there, right in that valley. I'll have to trouble you to bury me in his grave, Ding Ruijia said indifferently. Chuli pondered for a moment and finally nodded slowly. All right, he read Ding Ruijia's thoughts. Indeed, there were no traps or ambushes. Instead, she was eager to be buried together with her senior brother. This way, it would be easier to find him in the realm beyond heavens. Otherwise, they would be too far apart. Chuli once again appeared in the ravine that he had been to before. He held Ding Ruijia's corpse in his hand. This time, he did not mercilessly destroy the flower and behead Ding Ruijia. This was because Ding Ruijia's lifespan had come to an end. Even if he had a spirit medicine like the spirit blessing pill, he would not be able to save her. In a situation where her lifespan had come to an end, the spirit blessing pill would be ineffective. Ding Ruijia was dead, and no one could save her. Hence, he did not have to be merciless and let her be buried together with his senior brother. The formation in the ravine was still there, and it continued to operate. He quickly entered the ravine and buried Ding Ruijia. Finally, he came to a wooden house and found a box under a bamboo bed. The small box looked like it was used to store jewelry. It looked very ordinary, and the purple paint gave off a dark glow. He opened it to take a look. There were only 3 yellowing silk books in the box. He took them out and flipped through them. One of them had the words Heavenly Heart Technique written on it, and it was overflowing with ancient meaning. The other one was a Taoist scripture with no heart technique. The last one was Appearing Heaven Technique. Chuli reached out and took it. He flipped through it carefully and nodded in satisfaction. Other than the Taoist scripture, the other 2 books were impressive secret skills. Needless to say, the Heavenly Heart Technique was the basic heart technique of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion. The other one was Appearing Heaven Technique, which was even more amazing. It was a secret skill that could see through destiny. He was overjoyed. If he could cultivate both of them, he would not be inferior to the disciples of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion. He disappeared in a flash and appeared in the imperial residence of King An. In his own courtyard, Chu sat in the pagoda and looked at the 3 secret manuals on the stone table thoughtfully. He was feeling the aura of the 3 secret manuals. Through his intuition, he judged their degree of danger to see if he could cultivate them. The intuition of a grandmaster was a very mysterious power. It could predict danger. He could not tell where this power came from, but he firmly believed that if there was danger in cultivating the secret skills of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion, he should be able to sense it. It was better not to cultivate it. He reached out and pressed on the secret manual of the Heavenly Heart technique. His mind turned, and he wanted to cultivate it. A vague intuition appeared in his heart, but it did not allow him to touch this secret manual. Chu frowned. If that was the case, he was really not suitable to cultivate the Heavenly Heart technique. He was not fated with it. He reached out and pressed on the other peering heaven technique. As soon as the thought of cultivating it came into his mind, a surging warning appeared in his heart, telling him that he must not cultivate it. Chu looked at this peering heaven technique thoughtfully. It seemed that he was not fated with this peering heaven technique. He could not cultivate it. He believed in his intuition. If it said that he could not cultivate it and should stay away, then he would not cultivate it and stay far away. Otherwise, he would be digging his own grave. He stuffed the peering heaven technique in his chest and looked at the Heavenly Heart technique on the table. After thinking for a while, his intuition only told him that there was danger, but it was not as strong as the peering heaven technique. What did this mean? Did it mean that cultivating it would only be dangerous, but not necessarily fatal? However, danger was also troublesome. It seemed that he was not suitable to cultivate it. Should he cultivate it or not? He stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. His mind was spinning like lightning, weighing the pros and cons. For a moment, he could not decide. The sound of footsteps was heard. Co sure came in. She was dressed in a fluttering white gown. There was no white veil on her face, revealing her beautiful face. What are you thinking about? She looked at Chu curiously. She came to the pagoda. As soon as she sat down, she saw the Heavenly Heart technique on the stone table. She took it and flipped through it. She raised her head in surprise. Where did you get this? I picked it up, Chu said. Co sure was surprised. Is this the Divine Intelligence Pavilion's Heavenly Heart technique? Yes, Chu said. Co sure exclaimed. I didn't expect to finally encounter it. Chu shook his head and sighed. Too bad I can't cultivate it. P.S. Update complete. Recommendation. Mao Su's novel, There's a Sunny Day When You Live Again. Chapter 31:28. Chu frowned as he looked at the void in his mind. At Mahavajrokana Buddha, the Great Light Scripture, Mahavajrokana Buddha's Immobility Scripture, Heavenly Demon Scripture, Earth Matrix, and Reincarnation Scripture. These 4 scriptures belong to 4 Buddhas, 1 Buddha body, and 4 Buddha heads. They had always been quietly chanting in their minds, doing nothing but chanting. This was Mahavajrokana Buddha's first move, and he had already dispelled the Heavenly Heart Scripture. It must be something extraordinary to be able to alarm Mahavajrokana Buddha. There must be something wrong with this Heavenly Heart Scripture. He frowned as he pondered, but nothing came out of it. He picked up the Heavenly Heart Scripture secret manual and sensed it again. It was still dangerous. It was best not to cultivate it. After some thought, he imprinted it in his mind again, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate. The result was no different from the previous time. Mahavajrokana Buddha opened his eyes again, and with an emotionless gaze, he dispelled the memory of the Heavenly Heart Scripture in his mind. Chu opened his eyes and frowned as he stared at the Heavenly Heart Scripture secret manual. After a while, he decided to trust Mahavajrokana Buddha's judgment and intuition. It was obvious that Mahavajrokana Buddha valued the danger of the Heavenly Heart Scripture more than his intuition, and directly cut off the opportunity to cultivate it. He had already alarmed Mahavajrokana Buddha. If he continued to be stubborn and blinded by greed and insisted on cultivating it, he would be courting death. He suddenly glided to Tianshu courtyard. Xiaoshu was reading in the courtyard, dressed in a flawless white tunic. When she saw him, a smile appeared on her beautiful face. "Shall we continue cultivating?" Chu Li shook his head. "No." "Then I'll cultivate it myself," Xiao Shi said. "I think my aptitude is suitable for this." Chu Li said, "You can't cultivate it either. I'm here to cripple it." Xiao Shi frowned at him. "Are you out of your mind?" Chu Li knew it was useless to say anything else, so he sat opposite Xiao Shi and grabbed her left wrist. "Cripple it first." Xiao Shi struggled, but could not break free from Chu Li's big hand. After Chu Li's inner energy entered her body, it instantly devoured her inner energy. Her meridians were emptied in the blink of an eye, and all her cultivation had turned into water. Suddenly, she felt weak, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. Her vigorous spirit had also weakened, and the tiredness from not sleeping for a whole night seemed to have found its way to her. Xiao Shi's beautiful face darkened as she glared at him coldly. "Chu Li, you've really gone mad." Chu Li said, "No matter how I think about it, I still don't think it's appropriate. The Tianxin technique can't be casually cultivated. I think it's great." Xiao Shi said snappily, "Your mind is clear. There's nothing wrong with it. Who knows? Maybe I'm suitable for this. You just had to cripple my martial arts. You're despicable." Chu Li shook his head. "If you cultivate the heavenly heart technique, will the prophecy pavilion come looking for you?" Xiao Shi frowned at him. Chu Li said, "You don't get involved in karma at first, but once you start cultivating this, things will get out of hand. They'll definitely come looking for you, and they might even want to take you in. Isn't that a good thing?" Xiao Shi scoffed. The prophecy pavilion was also a famous sect. Although it was not one of the 8 major sects in the Fu dynasty, its reputation was not inferior to the 8 major sections. It was only because of the stargazing pavilion that it could not be listed among the 8 major sections. "It's fine if I don't become a disciple of the prophecy pavilion." Chu Li shook his head. He had seen the consequences of Ding Ruijia using the secret skill with his own eyes. He was deeply afraid of it, and would never allow Xiao Shi to enter the prophecy pavilion. "You're being unreasonable," Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li said, "In any case, it's better if you don't cultivate it. Fortunately, your cultivation is shallow now. It's not too late to cripple it." Xiao Shi glared at him fiercely. She struggled her wrist, wanted to shake off his big hand. However, Chu Li did not let go. A stream of inner energy instantly entered her body, restoring her cultivation level. However, it was the pure aura of the spirit crane breathing technique. Xiao Shi rolled her eyes at him. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "I was thinking too simply. Now it seems that this heavenly heart technique is a big problem. I have to think of a way to deal with it." "How?" Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li said, "Send it to the Holy Church of Light." "Divert the trouble?" Xiao Shi frowned. "Sun Mingwei isn't someone to be trifled with." Chu Li smiled. "The prophecy pavilion and the Holy Church of Light are enemies now. Sun Mingwei won't reject it. This was all thanks to him. Ding Ruijia's provocation caused Sun Mingwei to be dissatisfied with the prophecy pavilion. This incident also gave him some inspiration. The relationship between sects could be easily destroyed, but it was hard to repair it. His heavenly demonic power was extremely easy to manipulate, and he could achieve the effect of moving 1,000 gold with little effort. "Then be careful. Don't play with fire." Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li nodded. "My lady, don't think about the heavenly heart technique anymore. It's not a proper skill. It's better if you don't cultivate it." "All right," Xiao Shi scoffed. She still believed in Chu Li's judgment. Since he said she could not cultivate it, then she would not cultivate it. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. Divine Light Basilica, Great Light Peak. The setting sun illuminated the basilica beautifully. The entire basilica was bathed in red light. Chu Li stood at the bottom of the stairs and took out 2 secret manuals. "I obtained these 2 secret techniques from Ding Ruijia. My saint, please have a look." Sun Mingyue's white gown was dyed red. Her eyes were as clear as water. There was less coldness and sternness in them, and more gentleness. She looked at him. "The secret techniques of the prophecy pavilion." "Yes." Chu Li nodded solemnly. Bring them up, Sun Mingwe said. Chu Li walked up the stairs and placed the 2 secret techniques on the table. Sun Mingwe picked up the Heavenly Heart technique and flipped through it. Then, she looked at the Peering Heaven technique and looked up at Chu Li in surprise. Chu Li's expression was solemn. He lowered his eyes and was more respectful than before. Sun Mingwe flipped through the 2 secret techniques again and sighed. You're really lucky. Chu Li replied, Yes. Sun Mingwe stared at him with her bright eyes. Logically, the secret techniques of the Prophecy Pavilion would never be leaked. How did you get them? I found them at Ding Ruijia's residence, Chu Li replied. You're really lucky. Sun Mingwe shook her head and sighed. So you killed Ding Ruijia? Yes. Chu Li nodded slowly. Sun Mingwe frowned and stared at him. You know you're in big trouble, right? Yes, Chu Li replied. Sun Mingwe chuckled. Actually, the Holy Church would have protected you even if you didn't hand over these 2 secret techniques. The Prophecy Pavilion would definitely seek revenge. They would never tolerate the death of a disciple from the Prophecy Pavilion. The Prophecy Pavilion had become more and more tyrannical in recent years. It was said that they were going to become one of the 8 major sections. They could be seen everywhere in the Fu dynasty. It was said that they had also extended their reach to the other 4 countries. It was against common sense for Chu Li to hand over these 2 secret techniques. Logically, the secret techniques that he obtained did not have to be handed over to the Holy Church. He could cultivate them himself or pass them on to others. Sun Mingwe immediately understood Chu Li's intentions after thinking about it. Chu Li replied, I don't want the Holy Church to protect me for nothing. I have to contribute something. It's rare for you to think that way. Sun Mingwe asked, You didn't cultivate these 2 secret techniques. Chu Li shook his head. I don't dare to cultivate them. Oh, Sun Mingwe chuckled. You're bold and unscrupulous, but there's something you don't dare do. The Prophecy Pavilion is unpredictable. Who knows if their secret techniques can be cultivated? Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Moreover, once you've cultivated them, they'll definitely have a way to control them. Won't you be under their control? Smart. Sun Mingwe nodded in approval. Chu Li replied, I'm afraid of death. Sun Mingwe chuckled. She was extremely happy to obtain these 2 secret techniques. She was unprecedentedly amiable. Chapter 31:29. Chu Li said, I heard from Ding Ruijia that Stargazing Pavilion can't restrain Prophecy Pavilion. The only thing that can restrain Prophecy Pavilion is Goddess Attraction Mountain's Heaven-Defying Technique. Heaven-Defying Technique. Sun Mingwe pondered. She really did not know about this. Prophecy Pavilion and Stargazing Pavilion's actions were mysterious, and it was difficult for outsiders to see through them. Sun Mingwe was peerless in martial arts, and almost no one below the enlightened master could defeat her. The Holy Church of Light also had a strong foundation, but she did not know about this secret. Chu Li said, That's why we can't deal with Prophecy Pavilion. Sun Mingwe frowned. Her excitement gradually dissipated when she thought about this. Although the Holy Church of Light was powerful, they could not do anything to Prophecy Pavilion. As long as Prophecy Pavilion kept spreading the news that she, the Saint, and the Holy Church of Light were enemies, people would inevitably feel uneasy. Now that the Holy Church of Light was dominant, the other 3 sects would definitely take the opportunity to stir up trouble. Although she was not afraid, it would inevitably give the imperial family an excuse. The Holy Church of Light seemed powerful now, but she had to be more careful. The more powerful she was, the more she had to tread on thin ice. She had to be aware of hidden dangers to prevent herself from falling miserably. Chu Li was secretly happy to see Sun Mingwe like this. It was difficult to deal with Prophecy Pavilion alone, but it would be different with Sun Mingwe. Chu Li continued, In my opinion, we should take the initiative. How? Sun Mingwe asked. Chu Li said, Break into Prophecy Pavilion and destroy their lair. Wishful thinking. Sun Mingwe laughed. Chu Li said, It's exactly because of wishful thinking that they won't expect it and won't be on guard. There's a high chance that we'll succeed. Sun Mingwe frowned and pondered. Chu Li said, "Probably no one has the same idea. Prophecy Pavilion has been arrogant all these years and has made many enemies. If we attack, they won't be willing to be left out." That makes sense. Sun Minghua pondered. Chu Li said, "I've found their lair, but it's protected by formations. Does the Holy Church have any treasured weapons to break their formations?" "No." Sun Minghua shook her head. Chu Li sighed. "It's a pity that I wasn't able to obtain their secret skill. Does the saint know of a secret skill from the Prophecy Pavilion that can disregard formations?" "Oh." Sun Minghua was surprised. "You've seen it before?" Chu Li said, "I've seen this secret skill with my own eyes. Once it's performed, I'll become one with heaven and earth will become me. The formation will no longer obstruct me, and I'll be able to come and go as I please. It's truly amazing." Sun Minghua said in a low voice, "With such a secret skill, we have to guard against it." She was thinking about the Great Light Peak. Chu Li asked, "They won't dare to come over, will they?" Sun Minghua frowned and shook her head. "The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries are even more daring than us. Their momentum is too strong now, and they're acting without the slightest scruple. They would definitely do something like this. I want to inspect it myself." With that, she disappeared in a flash. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. He did not expect her to act so swiftly and decisively. Boom! Suddenly, a muffled sound came from the distance, like rolling thunder. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror. The Great Light Peak was shrouded in a formation. Usually, even if he used the omniscient mirror, he would not be able to observe too far away. However, the Divine Light Basilica's position was special. Standing there, he could observe the entire Great Light Peak. He saw Sun Minghua and a middle-aged man collide. The middle-aged man was sent flying. This middle-aged man was handsome and had a slender figure. He was a rare beauty. Even at his age, he still had an indescribable charm. After their palms collided, Sun Minghua's white clothes fluttered in the wind. Instead of retreating, she chased after the middle-aged man and struck him with her palm again. The middle-aged man countered with his palm, but was sent flying again. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air and shot it at Sun Minghua. Sun Minghua moved like a ghost and instantly turned into a shadow. The blood arrow hit the shadow and fell to the ground without any resistance. Sun Minghua appeared in front of the middle-aged man and struck him with her palm again. Her palm was soft and graceful, like a lover's caress. However, the middle-aged man retreated as if he was avoiding a snake or a scorpion. He used Sun Minghua's palm energy to speed up, but no matter how fast he was, he could not outrun Sun Minghua's body movement technique. Sun Minghua caught up with him in an instant and struck him with her palm again. Chu Li felt that the middle-aged man's cultivation level was profound. It was similar to his own. He was already a top-notch grandmaster and rarely had a worthy opponent. It was no wonder he dared to come to the Great Light Peak. It was obvious that he had something up his sleeves. However, in front of Sun Minghua, such a master was like a child in front of a strong man. He could not withstand a single blow. Chu Li felt a chill in his heart. As his cultivation level deepened, he could feel how terrifying Sun Minghua's cultivation level was. However, he did not expect that he could not withstand a single blow. The depth of Sun Minghua's cultivation level was shocking and beyond his imagination. The middle-aged man suddenly shrank in the air. His clothes fluttered as if he was in a strong wind. He instantly grew taller. Then his body movement technique suddenly sped up and he shot into the distance like a stream of light. Sun Minghua stood where she was. Her eyes were expressionless as she struck out with a divine light fist. Bang! It was like a clap of thunder. Chu Li saw the void collapse. The fist seemed to have broken through the void. The middle-aged man's body trembled and exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The blood mist fell and formed a bright pattern. However, there was no corpse left. Chu Li felt a chill down his spine. If the middle-aged man ended up like this, Chu Li would not fare any better against Sun Minghua. He was simply suppressed by his cultivation level. He could not resist at all. The same divine light fist was so powerful in her hands. It seemed that he had underestimated the Divine Light Fist. The Divine Light Fist was as famous as the Light Blade. It was one of the most powerful martial arts in the scripture of Great Light. Naturally, it had its own secrets. Most people cultivated the Divine Light Fist, but their progress was average. Although the power they unleashed was strong, it did not reach a terrifying level. Everyone thought that the Divine Light Fist was just so. After he saw this fist, he decided to study the Divine Light Fist and cultivate it well. Then, he would rediscover the secrets of the scripture of Great Light and work hard to improve his cultivation level as soon as possible. Without the support of a strong cultivation level, all extraordinary skills were flashy but useless. It was difficult for him to improve his cultivation level, but he could not be greedy for speed and work hard on extraordinary skills. Instead, he would belittle the basics of hard cultivation. He decided to go into isolated cultivation again to improve his cultivation level. Sun Mingwei appeared in the Divine Light Basilica in a flash. Chu Li calmed himself down and put away the omniscient mirror. He asked, "Did you really meet people from the Prophecy Pavilion?" "Yes." Sun Mingyue's eyebrows were solemn. Chu Li frowned. "They're quite bold." He did not expect the Prophecy Pavilion to be hostile to the Holy Church of Light. Logically, Sun Mingyue was hostile to the Prophecy Pavilion, but the Prophecy Pavilion should only hate him. They did not have good intentions when they sneaked into the Great Light Peak. They wanted to deal with the Holy Church of Light. "I wonder how many secrets they've uncovered," Sun Mingyue said. She was extremely angry. The Prophecy Pavilion brazenly went to the Great Light Peak. It was an insult to the Holy Church of Light. As a saint, she felt like she had been slapped in the face. Chapter 31:30. Chu Li said, "It looks like the Prophecy Pavilion really wants to start a war with us. A man has no intention of hurting a tiger, but the tiger wants to eat a man's heart." Sun Mingyue's dark brows were cold. "Looks like we really have to show them what we're made of." Chu Li perked up and quickly asked, "Saint, are you really going to make a move?" Sun Mingyue said faintly, "You know where their lair is?" Chu Li said, "I've been to their lair, the Cloud Dream Mountain. Unfortunately, it was protected by a formation and I couldn't enter. I don't have the secret skills of the Destiny Pavilion. This formation is so profound that I can't break it in a short time, so I can't do anything to them." He guessed that Sun Mingyue also knew the location of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets' headquarters, but she might not have gone there herself. "It's impolite not to reciprocate," Sun Mingyue said. "Since they're here, we should go and take a look." Chu Li frowned and said, "It's a pity that my understanding of formations is still shallow, so I can't enter. Why don't I go over there and stand guard? I'll see if I can run into a disciple of the secret pavilion and force him to bring me in." Sun Mingyue paced with her hands behind her back. Her graceful figure was covered by her white robe. She also felt troubled. The Divine Mystery Pavilion was indeed difficult to deal with. They could enter and exit the Great Light Peak at will, but the Great Light Peak could not enter and exit the Cloud Dream Mountain at will. This gave them an overwhelming advantage. This time, he had only discovered the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion when he personally patrolled the area. Before he made his move, the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion had come here countless times, how long they had been here, and how much they had investigated about the Great Light Peak. Once a fight broke out, they could attack the Great Light Peak at any time and then hide in the Cloud Dream Mountain. The Holy Church of Light would not be able to do anything to them. Once they fell out with each other, they would have to constantly be on guard against their sneak attacks. Thinking of this, her face under the white veil became solemn, and the corners of her eyes became solemn. Chu Li said, "Saint, the Prophecy Pavilion isn't actually that scary. After all, they have very few people. Having fewer people doesn't necessarily mean it's not scary." Sun Mingyue shook her head. Chu Li said, "They're very good at bewitching people. I'm just afraid that they'll incite other factions to go against the Holy Church of Light. If that's the case, then we have to fight." Sun Mingyue turned to look at him. Once they made it clear, it would not be easy for the Prophecy Pavilion to incite other sects to deal with the Holy Church of Light. If they did not make it clear that they were hostile, it would give the prophecy pavilion an opportunity to take advantage of them. Chu Li's tone suddenly changed. Actually, it's not that serious. It's not the time for the two factions to go to war yet. They might not have come to Great Light Peak to deal with us. It could be their style of doing things. For the time being, I'll deal with them alone. When he saw Sun Mingyue's eyes flicker, he changed his mind and no longer encouraged the Holy Church of Light to start a war with the Prophecy Pavilion. He did not want to arouse Sun Mingyue's suspicions, which would be too obvious and counterproductive. Sun Mingyue was more intelligent than most people. It was very likely that she would realize what had happened and become wary of him. That would make it even more difficult for her to incite the Holy Church of Light to go against the Prophecy Pavilion. How are you going to deal with it? Sun Mingyue asked calmly. Chu Li laughed. We'll wait for them to show up and raid their lair. You're quite bold, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, this is what the saint meant by give and take. We'll intimidate them. Don't think that Great Light Peak is their backyard where they can come and go as they please. The Holy Church of Light is not to be trifled with. Sun Mingyue smiled. Do you really dare to go? Chu Li said, if I can't win, I'll run. My light body technique is quite good. He could tell that Sun Mingyue had not made up her mind to deal with the Prophecy Pavilion. After all, the Prophecy Pavilion was powerful, especially the hidden forces. Although the Holy Church of Light was strong, she did not want to go against them. However, she was not afraid of conflict between disciples. But Saint, do we have any other martial arts or secret skills? Chu Li asked. I don't think I can do anything to the Prophecy Pavilion with my current abilities. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Your cultivation level is not high enough. What's the use of martial arts or secret skills? Chu Li said, my cultivation level is not high enough. Sun Mingyue said, there's always someone better. Cultivate honestly. There's no shortcut. Chu Li laughed. Then where did the saint learn all these skills from? Did you start cultivating when you were in your mother's womb? Half of my martial arts is natural. Sun Mingyue said, you can't compare them. Natural. Chu Li slowly nodded. It was obvious that she had a fortuitous encounter. Sun Mingyue said, focus on your cultivation. Don't worry about the Prophecy Pavilion. I'm afraid that others might not recognize the Cloud Dream Mountain. Chu Li said. Sun Mingyue said, I have someone in mind. Where are you going to cultivate in seclusion? Gale City. Chu Li said, I'm worried about Gale Branch. Aren't you afraid that the people from the Prophecy Pavilion will go there? Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li said, if I'm not there, they'll definitely attack the disciples of Gale Branch. I'll send someone to protect Gale Branch. You can cultivate in seclusion at Small Light Peak. Sun Mingyue said. Zhao De was too naive and could be easily taken advantage of, but it was also because of this that he could be of great use. Yes, thank you, Saint. Chu Li fist saluted. After that, he returned to Small Light Peak and began to set up a formation. He wanted to cover Small Light Peak with a formation so that he would know if anyone came close. Even if they were thousands of miles away, he could return in an instant. After setting up the formation, he returned to the High Duke's public house to cultivate in seclusion. Outside Snowy Moon Valley, a long howl was heard. It was clear and resounding, and it was continuous. After the howl, there was a long yell. Li Hanyan, Miss Li, please come out. Li Hanyan was dressed in a green outfit and was practicing her swordsmanship on the martial arts field. When she heard the yell, she frowned and thought that the voice was familiar. It might be someone she knew, so she sheathed her sword and fluttered out of Snowy Moon Valley. She saw Fong Qingyang in front of a pine forest outside the valley. Fong Qingyang's green robe fluttered under the setting sun. He was like a jade tree that stood in the wind, handsome and elegant. When he saw Li Hanyan, Fong Qingyang smiled and fist saluted. Miss Li. Li Hanyan was stunned. Xiao Fong, it's you? Fong Qingyang smiled. It's me. Have you recovered from your injuries? Li Hanyan said. You're quite brave to come here. Fong Qingyang smiled. I came here secretly this time. The people from Tempest Temple don't know. That's good. Li Hanyan nodded. What's the matter? I have something to say to Miss Li, Fong Qingyang said. Follow me then. Li Hanyan pointed at a mountain peak and turned to flutter away. The two of them arrived at a gazebo on the mountain peak. Li Hanyin sat at a stone table. Fang Qingyang sat opposite her and sighed. "Miss Li, I have something to confess." Li Hanyin looked at him coldly with her bright eyes. Fang Qingyang felt inexplicably guilty and smiled bitterly. "I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." "Holy Church of Light," Li Hanyin frowned. "So you're saying that I've saved the wrong person and we're enemies?" "No matter what, I'm deeply grateful for Miss Li's saving grace." Fang Qingyang said, "I wonder if Miss Li has ever thought of making peace with the Holy Church of Light?" Li Hanyin smiled in a mocking manner. Fang Qingyang said, "Actually, we don't have much of a grudge against each other. Miss Li has already taken revenge. The Holy Church of Light doesn't want to kill me?" Chapter 31:31. Turn hostility into friendship. Li Hanyin muttered. Fang Qingyang was a little worried. Li Hanyin was still young and was at the prime of her life. Moreover, her martial arts were so powerful that she had never suffered a loss in the battle against the Holy Church of Light. She was afraid that she would underestimate the Holy Church and insist on fighting to the end. She might not listen to others. Li Hanyin muttered, "Xiao Fang, do you mean what you say?" When Fang Qingyang saw her reaction, he was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "To tell you the truth, I am a priest of the Holy Church of Light." "You're a priest?" Li Hanyin was surprised. Her bright eyes sized him up and down. Finally, she shook her head and laughed. "That's impossible, right? Then let me introduce myself solemnly." Fang Qingyang put on a serious expression and gave a fist salute. "I'm Fang Qingyang, a priest of the Holy Church of Light." Li Hanyin's eyes turned into crescents as she smiled and said, "The Holy Church of Light's priest was beaten so badly by the Tempest Temple that he almost lost his life. I was careless last time." Fang Qingyang shook his head and said, "These bald donkeys from the Tempest Temple are sinister and ruthless. They plotted against me, otherwise I wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state. I've embarrassed myself in front of you." Li Hanyin said, "Those from the Tempest Temple are indeed not to be trifled with." "All right, I believe you." Fang Qingyang heaved a sigh of relief and asked hurriedly, "So, does that mean you've agreed?" In front of others, he was calm and confident, but in front of Li Hanyin, he lost his composure. His emotions were affected by Li Hanyin's every move, and he could not control himself. He did not have the imposing manner of a Dharmaraja. What are the duties of a consecrator? The status of a consecrator is transcendent, and he doesn't have any obligation to do so. He can choose whether to help or not. Fang Qingyang chuckled. The Holy Church of Light is extremely generous to its high officials. As long as they put in the effort, they'll naturally be rewarded handsomely in the form of pills or martial arts secret manuals. If that's the case, isn't being a high official a great job? Li Hanyin asked. Of course it's a good job. Not everyone can become our Holy Church's worshiper. Fang Qingyang said proudly. The Holy Church won't invite you if you're not qualified enough. Miss Li, you're young and your cultivation is profound, and your swordsmanship is outstanding. That's why you're qualified to be a high official. All right, I agree. Li Hanyin nodded happily. Fang Qingyang was overjoyed. He cupped his fists and said, Brilliant. Miss Li's wisdom is truly admirable. Young and vigorous people with excellent martial arts would never admit defeat. He originally thought that he would only have a glimmer of hope after a long period of persuasion and endless pestering. Moreover, he did not have much hope of success. In the end, he could only resort to the trick of injuring himself to gain the confidence of others. He did not expect Li Hanyin to agree so readily. Li Hanyin said faintly, Unless it's absolutely necessary, Snow Lunar Pavilion doesn't want to go against the Holy Church of Light. Of course, I have to adapt to the circumstances, but I have a condition. Please speak, Fang Qingyang said hurriedly. Li Hanyin said, I can't go against the martial arts world of the Ji dynasty. Of course. Fang Qingyang nodded hurriedly. The high priests of each country will not act against their own country. This is a basic rule. That's good. Li Hanyin said, Then there's no problem. Miss Li, would you like to come with me to meet the saint? Fang Qingyang asked. Li Hanyan frowned. Must you meet the saint? This is the rule, Fang Qingyang said. You can only become a high priest after meeting the saint. Oh, Li Hanyan frowned. Miss Li, Fang Qingyang said, the saint has the ability to read people's minds. If you really want to be a high priest, you must meet the saint. If you're just trying to be perfunctory, the saint doesn't have to meet you. Of course I'm sincere. Li Hanyan scoffed. All right, then let's go meet her. I've heard a lot about the saint, and I'd like to meet her. That's great. Fang Qingyang was overjoyed. Li Hanyan had agreed so readily. It was obvious that she really wanted to be a high priest. He had worried for nothing. When do we depart? The sooner the better. Then wait for me. I'll go back and inform them. We'll depart immediately. All right. Fang Qingyang did not expect Li Hanyan to be so bold. She was not worried that it was his scheme to lure her to the Great Light Peak. She trusted him. As the sun set, Fang Qingyang and Li Hanyan arrived outside the Divine Light Basilica on the Great Light Peak. Throughout the journey, Li Hanyan had been cold and aloof. Despite Fang Qingyang's fiery enthusiasm, it could not melt Li Hanyan's icy heart. She had been cold and aloof the entire time. She only listened quietly to Fang Qingyang's words, refusing to comment. She would occasionally respond, but most of the time she ignored him. Fang Qingyang could feel her alienation, but he did not give up. The more cold and arrogant she was, the more Fang Qingyang liked her. He had always liked Sun Mingyue from the bottom of his heart, but Sun Mingyue was too high for him to reach. As time passed, and Sun Mingyue's power grew, he slowly accepted his fate and no longer wished for anything more. Although Li Hanyan was not as beautiful as Sun Mingyue, she was still a rare beauty. Moreover, she had saved his life before. Her temperament was somewhat similar to Sun Mingyue's, and she had drawn out the feelings he had been suppressing, causing him to fall deeply in love. Doing came out in a green gown. She pursed her lips and smiled. Priest, the saint requests your presence. Fang Qingyang nodded and smiled at Li Hanyan. Miss Li, let's go in. Li Hanyan followed him into the basilica. She was slightly nervous. She did not know if Sun Mingyue could see through her thoughts. If she was seen through, it would be a huge threat to Brother Chu. Although Brother Chu had told her that she could meet Sun Mingyue without worry, she was still worried. She looked up and sized up Sun Mingyue, who was behind the long table. The white veil covering her face was placed on the table, revealing her beautiful face. Li Hanyan sighed to herself. She was indeed the most beautiful woman in the Li dynasty. She did not lose to the most beautiful woman in the Ji dynasty, Lady Xiao. Sun Mingyue put down the dossier and looked at her. High official Li. Li Hanyan gave a fist salute. Greetings, Saint. Sun Mingyue waved her hand to indicate that there was no need for formalities. She said lightly, You know Du Feng? Yes, Li Hanyan replied. Sun Mingyue asked, Chu Li knows him too? Yes. Li Hanyan nodded. Chu Li and Du Feng know each other, right? Sun Mingyue asked. Li Hanyan hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly. Yes, they know each other. How is their relationship? As far as I know, they've only met once. It's just a nodding acquaintance, Li Hanyan replied. Then who taught you martial arts? Sun Mingyue asked. It's not just Snow Lunar Pavilion's martial arts, right? Both Big Brother Du and Big Brother Chu taught me, Li Hanyan replied. What a great opportunity. Sun Mingyue showed a hint of admiration. You've learned from both sects' strengths to achieve what you have today. I'm just lucky, Li Hanyan replied. Sun Mingyue sized her up. Li Hanyan's body was covered by a thin veil. She could not see what was going on in her mind. She could only vaguely see the faces of Du Feng and Chu Li in her mind, and the scene of them teaching her martial arts. Sun Mingyue guessed that Li Hanyan cultivated a unique heart technique that could isolate her from prying eyes. Moreover, she sensed a strong killing intent from Li Hanyan. She had killed many people, which was rare for someone of her age. Chapter 31-32. Li Hanyan shook her head. I haven't seen Big Brother Du either. He's probably injured and is currently recuperating in isolation. He hasn't come out for a long time. Unfortunately, It seems like he can't withstand an enlightened master's attack. Sun Minghua nodded and said to Fong Qingyang, "Give High Official Li the token and send her back." "Yes," Fong Qingyang replied. After Li Hanyan left the Divine Light Basilica, she secretly sighed in relief. Sun Minghua was indeed powerful. Her aura was as vast as the sea and mountains. She was even more powerful than Big Brother Chu. She was indeed a heroine. Li Hanyan was far inferior to her. It seemed like she had to work harder on her cultivation. After descending the Great Light Peak, she rejected Fong Qingyang's escort and walked back on her own. In the evening, she stopped in a forest to rest. Before the sun set, she started a bonfire. When the bonfire was lit, she looked up and saw a middle-aged man floating in front of her. The middle-aged man was handsome and wore a black robe. When he came to the bonfire, he glanced at Li Hanyan and said, "Li Hanyan?" Li Hanyan looked at him. "Who are you? Do you know Zhao De?" The middle-aged man asked. Li Hanyan frowned. "What Zhao De?" She really did not know who Zhao De was. Chu did not tell her that he was disguised as Zhao De. She only knew that he had an identity in the Holy Church of Light, but did not know that he was Zhao De. The middle-aged man stared at her face as if trying to discern whether she was telling the truth or not. Seeing that she did not seem to be lying, he frowned and shook his head. "Forget it. It's useless to talk about this. If I kill you, Zhao De will naturally appear. You can only blame yourself for mistakenly recognizing someone inhuman. You can't blame anyone else." As he finished speaking, he pressed his palm down. Li Hanyan had goosebumps all over her body. She used a strange footwork to avoid the palm. The middle-aged man retracted his palm. He did not expect her to have such a body movement technique at such a young age to be able to avoid his palm. He stopped looking down on her, and his body suddenly sped up. He turned into a blurry shadow and suddenly appeared behind her. Then he slammed his palm down. Ding! Li Hanyan blocked the attack with her sword in time. The sword vibrated violently like a snake wriggling around. It shook to dispel the palm force on the sword. This was a unique and mysterious sword technique. However, the palm force was extremely condensed. Even the mysterious sword force could not completely dissolve it. The remaining palm force penetrated into her body. Her face immediately turned red and then paled. After the palm energy entered her body, it kept changing from extreme yin to extreme yang, from mist and smoke to sword and saber. The change was so abrupt that she couldn't react in time. She could only watch as it destroyed her internal organs, and in the blink of an eye, she was severely injured. When the middle-aged man saw that Li Hanyan was injured, he suddenly sped up and rushed to her. He slammed his palm on her chest, wanting to end her life. He hated Chu Li, but since he could not find Chu Li, he vented his anger on others. He wanted to kill the people around Chu Li to provoke him and force him to show himself. Li Hanyan's reflexes were extraordinarily fast. Once again, she placed her sword horizontally across her chest. Ding! Li Hanyan was sent flying along with her sword. She tumbled in the air, a trickle of blood flowing from the corner of her mouth. The middle-aged man appeared in midair in a flash. He came to Li Hanyan's side and slapped her again. Bang! Like a muffled thunderclap, a huge hand suddenly appeared and collided with the middle-aged man's palm. The middle-aged man was sent flying. Chu Li appeared in the air, grabbed Li Hanyan by the waist, and glided to the ground. A stream of earth matrix and reincarnation scripture, inner energy, entered her body and began to dissolve the 9 kills palm. Big Brother Chu. Li Hanyan's pale face broke into a smile. Miss Li. An angry roar came from afar. Fong Qingyang shot toward the middle-aged man like a stream of light. He activated the divine light body and moved as fast as lightning. Bang! He and the middle-aged man's palm collided, and both of them flew out at the same time. He was shocked in the air. He did not expect this guy to have such pure inner energy and such a profound cultivation level. He was actually slightly better than him. Li Hanyan said, "Big Brother Chu, Xiao Fong is no match for him." Chu Li nodded. Although Fong Qingyang was a priest, His cultivation level was the weakest among the 4 royal priests. This middle-aged man was called Zhu Hua, Ding Ruijia's senior brother. He was a master of the prophecy pavilion, and his cultivation level was far higher than Fang Qingyang's. Li Hanyin said, "Help Xiaofang." Chu Li nodded. He pointed a finger, and a petrifying finger shot out silently. Zhu Hua attacked with palm after palm, pressuring Fang Qingyang so much that he could not breathe and kept retreating. Although he was retreating, Fang Qingyang was not to be outdone. He used the divine light fist to fight back. He was originally escorting Li Hanyin in secret to avoid any accidents or to prevent the people from the Holy Church of Light from offending her again. When he saw Li Hanyin starting a bonfire, he went to catch a few musk deer to cook for her. He did not expect Li Hanyin to be attacked and injured in the blink of an eye. He blamed himself for being careless and was angry that Zhu Hua had injured Li Hanyin. What annoyed him even more was that Chu Li was the one who saved Li Hanyin. He had dealt with Chu Li before, and Chu Li had defeated him. His murderous intent surged, and he wanted to kill Zhu Hua with one punch, so he fought back recklessly. The petrifying finger was silent, and Zhu Hua's senses were far sharper than an ordinary person's. He was immediately alerted and knew that he could not take it head-on, so he quickly dodged sideways. Another petrifying finger shot out. Zhu Hua dodged again. Petrifying finger after petrifying finger formed a net of finger energy that enveloped him. Zhu Hua kept retreating, avoiding the finger energy. Unknowingly, he had retreated more than 100 feet before he could calmly avoid the finger energy. Chu Li held Li Hanyin in his arms and activated the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture's inner energy to neutralize the 9 kills palm energy. At the same time, he moved his 5 fingers and shot out petrifying finger after petrifying finger. His inner energy seemed endless, beyond imagination. The petrifying finger seemed to be silent and undetectable, but it consumed a lot of inner energy. Even a grandmaster could not shoot more than a few times. Chu Li relied on the endless spiritual energy to replenish it, but he was able to continuously shoot out finger energy as if it was an ordinary finger energy, maximizing the power of the petrifying finger. Fang Qingyang watched as Chu Li stood where he was, forcing Zhu Hua to keep retreating with a light tap of his finger. He felt very uncomfortable, especially when he saw that Li Hanyin was smiling despite her pale face, which made him feel even more uncomfortable. Zhu Hua stopped after retreating 30 feet and frowned at Chu Li. He vaguely felt that Chu Li's aura was somewhat familiar, but to his surprise, it was not Zhao De. Chu Li let go of Li Hanyin and stared at Zhu Hua with a serious expression. He knew that Zhu Hua had not shown his true abilities. The most frightening thing about the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion was their body technique, which was almost magical. After experiencing Ding Ruijia's body technique, he was extremely wary of the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion. Although the petrifying finger was powerful, it was best at sneak attacks. It could silently freeze one's body and change the situation in an instant. The disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion had keen senses and could easily avoid sneak attacks. Once they were prepared, Zhu Hua's body technique could not threaten him at all. Zhu Hua stared at him and sized him up. He scoffed. "Who are you?" "Chu Li," Chu Li said in a low voice. "Chu Li from the Ji dynasty?" Zhu Hua frowned. Chu Li said calmly, "That's me." He appeared in front of Zhu Hua in a flash and shot out a heavenly king palm. He was not afraid of the heavenly king palm exposing his identity. It did not look abnormal and looked like a simple palm energy. Only the heavenly king palm could counter the 9 kills palm. Zhu Hua countered with his palm. Bang! Chu Li took a step back, but Zhu Hua was sent flying. The heavenly king palm was extremely overbearing and powerful. Fang Qingyang frowned. He did not expect Chu Li's martial arts to improve so quickly. When they first met, Chu Li was still inferior to him. In just half a year, he had turned the world upside down and surpassed him. He had already experienced Zhu Hua's palm energy. It was extremely pure and profound. He was not a match for him, but he had been defeated by Chu Li and looked like he could not withstand a single blow. Chapter 31-33. Chu Li turned and said, "Advisor Fong, what are you waiting for?" Fong Qingyang was stunned and frowned at him. Chu Li said, "I can't handle him myself." Fong Qingyang was in disbelief. He watched helplessly as Chu Li sent Zhu Hua flying with one palm and gained the upper hand. Chu Li said impatiently, "Advisor Fong, can't you see that his cultivation level is far higher than ours?" Fong Qingyang glanced at Li Hanyin. Li Hanyin was staring at Zhu Hua. Her eyes were bright and sparkling, and she looked eager to try. He was startled and said, "Miss Li, don't do it, let me." He rushed to Chu Li's side, and when Chu Li attacked, he took the opportunity to launch a divine light fist silently. Bang! Chu Li took a step back and sent Zhu Hua flying with his heavenly king palm again. Fong Qingyang's divine light fist arrived in front of Zhu Hua. Zhu Hua floated in the air and spun, dispersing the divine light fist effortlessly. Fong Qingyang was secretly annoyed. His fist force could do nothing to him, but Chu Li's palm force sent him flying. It seemed like Chu Li's cultivation level was not higher than his. Li Hanyin said, "I'll do it too." She unsheathed her sword and was about to attack when Chu Li grabbed her. Li Hanyin was indignant. "Big brother Chu." Chu Li shook his head. "Don't fight him." Zhu Hua's light body technique was too powerful. Li Hanyin's swordsmanship was good, but it was full of loopholes in Zhu Hua's eyes. He could use his body technique to counter her at any time. It was too dangerous to fight her, and Chu Li did not want to take the risk. Li Hanyin stomped her feet helplessly and sheathed her sword. Seeing how obedient she was, Fong Qingyang was jealous and annoyed. He said coldly, "Brother Chu, your cultivation level is improving at a godly speed." Chu Li smiled. "I was just lucky. Priest is improving too. Not as good as you." Fong Qingyang was a little uncomfortable. Li Hanyin said, "Big brother Chu, you can't beat him?" Chu Li shook his head. "This guy is hard to deal with." The Heavenly King Palm sent Zhu Hua flying again and again, but could not hurt him. It was all thanks to the uniqueness of the Heavenly King Palm. Even when he joined forces with Fong Qingyang, he could barely block it. "Priest, if the saint attacks, he will definitely die," Chu Li said. Fong Qingyang shook his head lightly. The saintess had a high status and authority. How could she casually make a move? Unless it was the most crucial moment, the saintess would not make a move. Otherwise, wouldn't it make everyone seem incompetent? Chu Li sighed. "Without the saint, we can't do anything to him. Then let's just wait," Fong Qingyang said. Zhu Hua looked at them with a frown and suddenly retreated. Fong Qingyang breathed a sigh of relief. Li Hanyin heaved a sigh of relief and said, "In the end, he still managed to escape." That was close. Chu Li shook his head, his body still tensed up. Bang! Zhu Hua suddenly appeared behind Li Hanyin, and Chu Li met him with a palm strike. Their palms collided again, and Zhu Hua was sent flying backward. In a fit of rage, Fong Qingyang followed up with a divine light fist. Zhu Hua's figure swayed as he fluttered away from the divine light fist. His body was like a ghost, flashing and reappearing as he attacked Li Hanyin relentlessly. Li Hanyin's sword was too slow, and she could not stab him at all. Chu Li managed to block in front of Li Hanyin by a hair's breadth, and it was frightening. He was familiar with the martial arts of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion, and the power of the Nature Restoration Manifestation was gradually unleashed. Without the Nature Restoration Manifestation's early detection, he could not save Li Hanyin in time with his body movement technique. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 palm strikes had passed, but Zhu Hua was relentless and had no intention of giving up. Among the three of them, only Chu Li could block him with the Heavenly King Palm. Li Hanyin and Fong Qingyang could not even touch Zhu Hua's figure. Their efforts were in vain. Li Hanyin's heart sank, and she secretly gritted her teeth, deciding to go back and cultivate as hard as she could. Fong Qingyang, on the other hand, was furious, feeling like a clown. Chu Li said in a low voice, "Priest, you go first." "I'm not leaving," Fang Xingyang said coldly. Chu Li said, I can escape with Han Yin, but I can't do it with you. I become a burden. Fang Xingyang gritted his teeth. Chu Li nodded. Fang Xingyang snorted angrily, and his figure suddenly changed. A ray of light seemed to fall on him from the sky, and his body suddenly lit up. His entire aura suddenly surged like a huge wave. His figure suddenly sped up, and as fast as lightning, he stood in front of Zhu Hua. Bam, 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 bam. The two of them exchanged more than 20 blows in a row. The divine light fist was majestic and did not seem to be at a disadvantage, and they fought from the ground to the sky. Chu Li took the opportunity to shoot out the petrifying finger. Zhu Hua's figure flashed, and he evaded the petrifying finger. Fang Xingyang used the secret technique of great light, and Zhu Hua felt threatened, so he dared not underestimate it. Chu Li's petrifying finger was tricky and strange, and it seemed to be everywhere. Every blow hit the path that Zhu Hua had to take, and it seemed to see through the changes in his body movement technique, forcing him to constantly change, and his speed was greatly reduced. Fang Xingyang kept him occupied and did not give him a chance to escape. Chu Li's petrifying finger did not require inner energy, and it was continuous, forming a net of finger energy that enveloped him. The two of them joined forces to suppress Zhu Hua. Li Hanyin was exultant, and she felt that there was a lot of hope. As time passed, Fang Xingyang's fist force became stronger and stronger, and Zhu Hua gradually found it difficult to suppress it. In addition, the petrifying finger kept hindering his body movement technique, so his inner energy could not flow smoothly, and this unknowingly weakened the power of the 9 kills palm. Chu Li appeared beside him in a flash, and with a palm strike, he condensed all the inner energy in his body into this heavenly king palm. Bam! Zhu Hua could not avoid it, so he took this palm strike head-on and was sent flying backward. Bam! The divine light fist followed closely behind, and he stretched out his palm to dissolve it. The 9 kills palm had endless changes, and it was the best at reducing fist force. Chu Li appeared again in a flash, and another heavenly king palm. Bam, 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 bam. Zhu Hua continued to exchange blows with Chu Li, and the speed at which he was sent flying increased again and again. Bam! Zhu Hua's figure stopped abruptly, and he fell straight to the ground. Fang Xingyang appeared in the void behind him, and his body floated in the air as he slowly retracted his fist. His entire body moved without any wind, and his beard and hair danced in the wind as if he was in the midst of a strong gale. Seeing his situation, Chu Li knew that the secret technique of great light had been activated to its final stage. If this continued, he would really burn his vital essence and directly ascend to the great light boundary of the Grandmaster. Chu Li did not expect him to be so unyielding. I got it. After Zhu Hua fell to the ground, he immediately flipped over and stood up, blood gushing out from the corner of his mouth. He widened his eyes and pointed at Chu Li. You're Zhao De. Chu Li was stunned and frowned at him. What Zhao De? In a flash, Fang Xingyang appeared behind Zhu Hua again in a flash, and with another punch. Zhu Hua disappeared in an instant. Chu Li frowned and realized that Zhu Hua was already 100 meters away. He reached out and grabbed Li Hanyin's sleeve, and in a flash, he appeared 100 feet away, and in another flash, he appeared 200 feet away. Fang Xingyang, however, shot into the forest like a stream of light, passing through the forest toward Zhu Hua, who was 100 meters away. However, Zhu Hua had already appeared 200 meters away, and his speed was beyond their imagination. Chu Li, so you're Zhao De, huh? Zhu Hua's laughter rang from afar. No wonder. Chapter 31-34. Chu Li held onto Li Hanyin and stood there, shaking his head and sighing. Li Hanyin asked, Big Brother Chu, who is Zhao De? Who knows? Chu Li shook his head. Ridiculous. Does the priest know who Zhao De is? Fang Xingyang chased for a while, but could not catch up to Zhu Hua. He was furious that he could not catch up to an injured Zhu Hua even after activating his secret technique. This Zhu Hua was really powerful and a great enemy of the Holy Church. Fang Qingyang withdrew the secret technique of great light and said, Zhao Dai is a rising star of the Holy Church. He has risen rapidly and is already a branch leader. He is famous in the Li dynasty, and you don't know him, Brother Chu? Zhu Hua's voice echoed in his ears, and he was skeptical of Zhu Hua's words. Chu Li frowned. I've never heard of this Zhao Dai, but why did he think I was Zhao Dai? Don't tell me we look alike. There can't be such a coincidence in this world, right? Fang Qingyang looked Chu Li up and down, trying to see through his thoughts. Then, he shook his head and said, he's probably not in his right mind. He's probably confused after being injured. You look too different from Zhao Dai. Chu Li said, this is ridiculous. The priest used a secret technique. Is it okay? Fang Qingyang said, it's okay to escape. Chu Li laughed. The priest is afraid that I'll take revenge and hit him when he's down. Fang Qingyang smiled and did not deny it. They looked like they were friends, but they were actually enemies who had fought to the death. He believed that Chu Li would not let go of this opportunity. He would not let it go either. Li Hanyan asked, Big Brother Chu, do you have a grudge against each other? Chu Li smiled. I almost died in the priest's hands. What goes around comes around. I didn't expect this to happen again. But don't worry, priest. You used a secret technique to save Han Yan. I won't take advantage of your misfortune. Li Hanyan looked at Chu Li helplessly and then at Fang Qingyang. Young Fang, you go first. I'll send you back. Fang Qingyang said. Li Hanyan rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. Do you want me to send you back, or do you want me to send you back? Fang Qingyang was at a loss for words. He was well aware of his own situation. Although his inner energy was still surging and boundless now that he had burned his blood essence, his essence, qi, and spirit were extremely weak, and he could faint at any moment. In this state, no matter how deep his inner force was, it was not suitable for him to fight with others. Chu Li said, Priest, let's go back first. That guy's injured and won't dare to come again. Moreover, we can escape with only Han Yan. Fang Qingyang's expression darkened, and he glared at him. It was obvious that she thought he was a burden, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Chu Li looked at him with a smile. Li Hanyan blinked her bright eyes. Xiao Fang, let's go back. All right, Fang Qingyang said slowly. Chu Li waved his hand. Thank you, priest. We'll meet again next time. I'll try again next time. Fang Qingyang snorted and gave Li Hanyan a fist salute. Take care, Miss Li. You too. Li Hanyan nodded. When Fang Qingyang saw that she did not show any signs of reluctance, he felt an indescribable bitterness in his heart. He forced a smile and drifted away. You're saying that the disciple of the Divine Mystery Pavilion said that Chu Li is Zhao Dai, and Zhao Dai is Chu Li? Sun Mingwei frowned at Fang Qingyang. Fang Qingyang's face was as pale as a sheet, but his eyes were bright as he said in a low voice, I dare not lie to you, Saint. It's true. Sun Mingwei got up and walked down the stairs. She paced in front of the table with her hands behind her back, looking elegant and noble. Fang Qingyang's gaze followed her back and forth. After a while, Sun Mingwei shook her head. Impossible. She had entered the Ji dynasty under an alias and originally wanted to challenge Chu Li, but she encountered Du Feng and was defeated by him. She was not really defeated, but with the martial arts of her incarnation, she could only lose and not win. It was a pity that she did not get to witness Chu Li's intelligence and martial arts. However, no matter how unconstrained she was, she could not link Zhao Dai and Chu Li together. Zhao Dai was reckless and impulsive, unyielding and stubborn. He was completely different from the mellow and calm Chu Li. They were completely different people. Fang Qingyang said, I also think it's ridiculous and unbelievable. Zhao Dai and Chu Li are completely different. How could they be together? Zhao Dai. Sun Mingwei frowned and did not say anything. The prophecy pavilion hates him to the core and will do anything to get rid of him. However, Zhao Dai is now hiding in Small Light Peak, so they can't do anything. Why would the prophecy pavilion disciple want to kill Miss Li? Fang Qingyang was puzzled. It has nothing to do with Miss Li, right? Could it be that they deliberately framed Zhao Dai and put on an act just to deceive me? It's highly possible. Sun Mingyue nodded slowly. Fang Qingyang said, "Why don't we go to Small Light Peak and take a look?" "All right," Sun Mingyue replied. Sun Mingyue disappeared from Divine Light Basilica in a flash. Fang Qingyang did not move. He knew that his light body technique was far inferior to the saint's. By the time he rushed over, the saint would have already returned. There was no need to waste his energy. Chu Li had already expected Sun Mingyue to come over, so he was already sitting in the thatched cottage at Small Light Peak and channeling. When Sun Mingyue appeared at Small Light Peak, she realized that she was trapped in a formation and could not get close to the thatched cottage. Chu Li suddenly appeared and gave a fist salute. "Saint, follow me." He walked forward using a strange step technique, while Sun Mingyue followed closely behind him. Following his footprints, they soon arrived at his thatched cottage. Instantly, it was as warm as spring. It was a completely different world from the harsh wind outside. After entering the narrow cottage, Chu Li sat on the couch and gave a fist salute with a smile. "Saint, why are you here all of a sudden?" Sun Mingyue sat on a low stool. "I'm here to take a look." "Thank you for your concern, Saint." Chu Li sighed. "Even with the protection of the formation, I'm still worried that the people from the Prophecy Pavilion can come in at any time." Sun Mingyue asked, "Zhao Dai, do you know Chu Li?" Inside the narrow cottage, the delicate fragrance from her body wafted into Chu Li's nose. He was stunned. "Chu Li? Which Chu Li?" "Chu Li from the Ji dynasty. I've heard of him. Du Feng of the south and Chu Li of the north. He's quite famous," Zhao Dai said. "Why? Are you going to deal with him?" Sun Mingyue asked. "You've never seen him before?" She stared at Chu Li without blinking. Although she could not read Zhao Dai's mind, she could clearly see the changes in his mood. Her eyes were very sharp, and she could clearly see the slightest change in his expression. If Zhao Dai had a guilty conscience, he would not be able to hide it from her. Chu Li had long been prepared for such a situation and had practiced it many times. With his precise control over his body, he had practiced every minute change in his expression. He revealed a mysterious expression. "Saint, I think I've seen him before." "According to the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion, you're related to Chu Li," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li chuckled. "Could it be that I'm his biological brother? I'm an orphan, so I might have only one parent." Did the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion figure it out? "If that's the case, what are you going to do?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li smiled. "It's hard to say. If he's really my brother, I can't just watch him die, can I? But what's the relationship between us?" Sun Mingyue said, "You don't have to pay attention to what he said. He's just spouting nonsense to confuse everyone. However, you must be careful of the Prophecy Pavilion. They haven't given up and are still looking for you." Chu Li scoffed. "These people are really troublesome. I feel like there's nowhere safe and they'll find me. I can't go into isolated cultivation in peace." Chapter 31-35. Sun Mingyue muttered, "If that doesn't work, let's go to the Great Light Peak." "The Great Light Peak isn't safe either." Chu Li shook his head. "Didn't you encounter one last time?" "I killed one last time. I might not dare to come again," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li smiled. "That's hard to say. It's safer than here," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li saw that although she spoke calmly, her expression was firm and inviolable. So he stopped struggling and nodded. "All right, let's go to the Great Light Peak then. I'll arrange a place for you," Sun Mingyue said. "You can calm down and cultivate in isolation." Chu Li fist saluted. "Thank you, Saint." He understood that Sun Mingyue wanted to keep him under her watch. She was still suspicious of him. Even if she did not suspect him, it was to be prepared and to observe him more clearly. It seemed that Sun Mingyue's inability to see his own heart was a sore point. If someone had said that Fang Qingyang was a traitor, she would not have believed or doubted him. After all, she could see through his thoughts. "Follow me," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said nothing else and followed her out of Small Light Peak to the Great Light Peak. He lives up to his reputation. Li Hanyan let out a smile. Sun Mingyue sat cross-legged opposite her. The bonfire shone on her veiled face, revealing her beautiful face through the white veil. Her eyes were as bright as torches. The crackling sound of burning could be heard from time to time. The surroundings were quiet. It was winter, and the insects had curled up and stopped chirping. The full moon shone coldly in the night sky. Li Hanyin closed her eyes again to meditate. Time passed unknowingly. After 15 minutes, Sun Mingyue asked, "Where'd he go to find food?" Li Hanyin replied, "Maybe he went hunting, or he went to the nearby city to look for some food and wine. He's not worried that you won't come back for so long?" Sun Mingyue asked. Li Hanyin shook her head. "I'm not weak. If the people from Divine Mystery Pavilion come again, I can take 2 hits. Big Brother Chu will make it back in time." Sun Mingyue glanced at her and closed her eyes again. Li Hanyin closed her eyes and meditated as well. She did not know that Chu Li had been imprisoned in Sun Mingyue's formation. She felt that nothing could stump him, so she only needed to calm down and heal herself. She did not have to worry about anything else. An hour quickly passed. The full moon sprinkled its clear light onto their bodies. The surroundings became quieter and the night became darker. Only the crackling of the bonfire could be heard. Sun Mingyue opened her eyes and shot a cold glance at Li Hanyin. Her confidence suddenly began to waver. She did not believe that Zhao Dai and Chu Li were the same person. But the more bizarre the matter, the more careful one had to be. Reality often exceeded one's expectations, and she was just curious to find out the truth. However, as time passed, and Chu Li was still nowhere to be seen, her heart gradually sank. Could it be that the fellow from the Pavilion of Prophecy was right? When she thought about how laughable and terrifying this would be, her heart went cold, and she began to release dense, killing intent. Li Hanyin glanced at her uncomfortably and couldn't help but want to shrink back. Chapter 31-36. Time continued to pass, but Chu Li was still nowhere to be seen. Chu Li moved around in the cave, his face as calm as still water. He had already guessed that Sun Mingyue was beside Li Hanyin waiting for him to appear. If he did not appear, she would really suspect Zhu Hua's words. That would be the beginning of trouble. Once a thorough investigation was carried out, Sun Mingyue would definitely find out the truth based on her ability. He would definitely be hunted by the Holy Church of Light, and it would be difficult for him to survive. Not to mention others. Sun Mingyue alone was more than enough to kill him. Moreover, the Holy Church of Light had many masters. Not only him, but the High Duke's public house and the Imperial residence would also be in trouble. Even Snow Lunar Pavilion would not be spared. The consequences were like a 1,000-pound boulder pressing on his shoulders, about to crush him. Chu Li's mind became more agile as the formations he had seen and heard began to merge in his mind. He activated the omniscient mirror with all his might, trying to break through the shackles of the formation and get a rough idea of what kind of formation it was. The omniscient mirror seemed to be covered by a layer of gauze and could not be seen clearly. Now he could only guess based on the hazy outline, verify it through some details, and then desperately think of a way to crack it. He was racing against time. If he did not appear in front of Sun Mingyue within 2 hours, she would definitely be suspicious and start investigating. He had to crack this formation within 2 hours. At this time, he yearned for the secret skill of the Prophecy Pavilion. If he had that secret skill, even if he had to pay the price, he would not be willing to bear such a huge risk and pressure. He could just use the secret skill to get out of the formation and appear in front of Sun Mingyue. This thought flashed past his mind as he quickly focused on cracking the formation. Time continued to pass, but he did not make any progress. The omniscient mirror was still covered by a layer of gauze, so he could not see the full picture of the formation. He could only crack the formation by guessing its origin. Sun Mingyue opened her eyes and looked at Li Hanyin. "Looks like Chu Li won't appear. Big Brother Chu will come back." Li Hanyin pursed her red lips. "I don't know what happened, but he will come back sooner or later. It's been 2 hours, right? Almost 2 hours." Li Hanyin frowned. "Saint, why are you looking for Big Brother Chu? Don't tell me you only want to see him. You are a busy man, and your time is precious. I just wanted to meet him." Sun Mingyue glanced around. Could it be that he saw me and hid to the side? Li Hanyan asked. Why is brother Chu hiding from the saint? Sun Mingwe scoffed. He killed many of the Holy Church's disciples in the Ji dynasty's fairies' capital. If that's the case, Li Hanyan frowned. Could it be that the saint is seeking revenge? Sun Mingwe said, if there's a chance to teach him a lesson, of course we can't let it go. Then Big Brother Chu might have really avoided it. Li Hanyan nodded and said, he won't let himself be taken advantage of. Sun Mingwe smiled faintly. Her senses were sharp, so she would definitely be able to detect Chu Li the moment he appeared. However, Chu Li had yet to appear, so she had to consider his whereabouts. She would find out tonight whether Chu Li and Zhao Dai were the same person. No matter how good Zhao Dai's formation was, it was impossible for him to break through the formation and escape in a short period of time. If Chu Li did not show up, then Zhu Hua's words could not be completely ignored. They needed to investigate further. Chu Li's hands did not stop moving, leaving densely packed marks on the ground. However, his eyebrows were tightly knitted together and his face was gloomy. As time passed, the pressure on him increased, but he still had no clue. He felt that his brain was not working fast enough. If he could be a little faster, he might be able to dispel the fog and break the formation without relying entirely on the omniscient mirror. Unfortunately, although his mind worked like lightning, it could not really be as fast as lightning. The time left was getting shorter, but he still did not make any progress. If this continued, it would soon exceed 2 hours. He kept thinking of a way to save himself, and suddenly he had a flash of inspiration. The 4 Buddhas and 1 demon in the void of his mind suddenly stopped chanting and began to think about the formation. In the past, when he wanted to control the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon, they did not respond and did not listen to him. They only chanted and did not do anything else. At first, he did not have high hopes and only wanted to give it a try. However, this time, the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon seemed to know that this was a crucial time, so they no longer disobeyed and obediently thought about the formation. Suddenly, his mind became extremely clear, and his thoughts became extremely agile. This time, he finally felt what it felt like to think like lightning. It was really faster than lightning, and he could reach the end with just a thought. Usually, he would need to think hard for a long time to figure it out, but now, he could figure it out with just one thought. He passed through all kinds of obstacles as fast as lightning and reached the end in an instant. This feeling made him truly understand what it meant to be extremely intelligent. He really had a clear understanding of heaven and earth, and everything in the world was under his control. He did not dare to be distracted and only focused on the formation. A formation gradually appeared in the void of his mind, from a part to a whole, from an outline to a specific and clear formation. He was able to reproduce the formation outside through deduction. This was completed in just a moment's time. If this kind of deduction had been done before, he would not have been able to complete it in a day. He immediately suppressed his joy and figured out what kind of formation it was. The next step was to break it. Right at this moment, fatigue surged in him, and his vision turned black as if he was going to pass out at any time. The 4 Buddhas and 1 demon in the void of his mind lost their soft light and became dim, as if their vitality was dissipating. He cursed in his heart. The power of the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon could only hold on for a moment. The 4 Buddhas and 1 demon used their own spirit, and even though his spirit was strong, he could only hold on for a moment. His vision turned black, and he could no longer see the formation clearly. He wanted to break it, but he was powerless. He knew that if he persisted, the void of his mind would collapse, and the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon would disappear. He would be beaten back to his original form, which was even more terrible than being crippled of his martial arts. He would truly lose hope. He roared in his heart, full of unwillingness. God was playing tricks on him. He saw hope, but it immediately sent despair. Was this really his destiny? Was he going to die in the hands of the Holy Church of Light? Sun Mingwe looked up at the night sky, shook her head, and stood up. Li Hanyan also stood up. Saint, You're leaving? Yes, since he's avoiding me, then forget it. I won't force him to see me, Sun Mingwei said faintly. Tell him that I'll look for him again. Yes. Li Hanyin closed fist saluted. However, she had a bad feeling. She could feel Sun Mingwei's murderous intent, and it was even stronger than before. Sun Mingwei shook her head and sighed to herself. It seemed that she was wrong. There was indeed something wrong with this Zhao Dai. When she thought of this, she had mixed feelings that she could not describe. She turned around, waved at Li Hanyin, and was about to leave. In fact, she did not want to leave. She felt that she might see Chu Li the next moment, and then she would not have to investigate Zhao Dai, and the Holy Church of Light would not become a joke. Chapter 31-37. As Chu Li's vision darkened, he gritted his teeth and continued to break the formation. Suddenly, there was a flash of light and his body disappeared from the cave. The next moment, he appeared outside the formation, and then in a flash, he appeared in a forest. Standing on a tree in the forest, he gritted his teeth to prevent himself from passing out. However, his face was as pale as lime and his eyes were dull. The void in his mind was dark. From a night sky filled with bright stars and clear moonlight, it became a night sky without stars and a moon. Suddenly, a soft light flashed on the big round mirror. Then, the mirror floated up and lay flat. A strange symbol appeared on the mirror, shining brightly. It was the concentration talisman. In the void, countless golden threads entered the void of the mind and landed on the big round mirror. The mirror gradually brightened and reflected the void of the mind, turning into a bright moon. Not only did the golden threads land on the mirror, but they also landed on the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon. They no longer stayed still and started chanting scriptures again. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. He was drenched in cold sweat. He almost crippled himself. It was a close call. He stood on the treetop and saw Sun Mingwei in the distance. She stood up and was about to leave. He was not in a hurry to show himself. Instead, he glided and approached her slowly. He knew that Sun Mingwei would definitely notice him. Sun Mingwei stopped abruptly and turned her head to look at him. Under the moonlight, Chu Li was dressed in a white robe with a long sword hanging from his waist. He glided on the treetop and looked indescribably handsome. It was the complete opposite of Zhao Dai's image. He glided to Li Hanyin's side and glanced at her before looking at Sun Mingwei. He asked, "Hanyin, this is?" Li Hanyin let out a sigh of relief, and so did Sun Mingwei. She looked at Chu Li from head to toe, wanting to see if he was the same person as Zhao Dai. "Big brother Chu, this is the saint of the Holy Church of Light," Li Hanyin quickly said. Chu Li's expression changed. He frowned at Sun Mingwei and gave her a fist salute. "Oh, it's the saint. I've heard so much about you." Sun Mingwei asked, "You're Chu Li?" "Yes, I am," Chu Li replied. "May I know why the saint is here? Are you looking for trouble with Hanyin?" "I'm not looking for trouble with her. I'm looking for trouble with you," Sun Mingwei replied. Her punch was light as a feather. Chu Li was aware of the power of the divine light fist. He glided away and easily dodged the punch. He frowned at her. Sun Mingwei said calmly, "How many disciples of the Holy Church of Light have you killed?" "I'll settle the score today." "Ha, let's settle the score." Chu Li laughed heartily. "All right, I'm going to have a taste of the saint's peerless martial arts." He unsheathed his sword, and the great heaven-deriving sword merged with many other sword techniques, forming a unique sword technique that was even more powerful. A light stab was fast and tricky. Chu Li had seen Sun Mingwei's martial arts through the omniscient mirror. The combination of the nature restoration manifestation and the great heaven-deriving sword had forced Sun Mingwei to take the attack head-on. Bam! A divine light fist collided with his sword. The body of the sword vibrated like a wriggling snake, and the buzzing sound was incessant. It dissolved the fist force of the divine light fist, and, at the same time, the cloud-slashing power was swallowing the fist force that had penetrated into the sword, dispelling her random attack. She hurriedly threw this punch to block Chu Li's tricky and strange sword. She did not have the time to accumulate energy, but it was enough to make Chu Li struggle. Sun Mingwe did not show any mercy and threw another divine light fist. Chu Li had a bitter expression. Sun Mingwe's divine light fist was so powerful not only because of her profound inner energy, but also because the divine light fist had reached a high level of attainment. Just like the heavenly king palm, it amplified the power of her inner energy. Sun Mingwe did not need other antique studies. The divine light fist alone was simple enough, and no one could stop it. He swung his sword at lightning speed to meet the divine light fist. He used his sword technique to neutralize the force, and the cloud slashing power to absorb it. Even so, he was slightly injured after 3 punches. "Saint, have mercy!" Li Hanyin cried out hurriedly. Chu Li said, "Hanyin, leave first." Li Hanyin stomped her feet and said angrily, "Saint." Sun Mingwe said, "You're a high official of the Holy Church of Light, but Chu Li isn't. If you spare his life, then he'll become a high official too." Chu Li laughed out loud and shook his head. "What a fool's dream. Then you can die." Sun Mingwe launched another divine light fist. Chu Li suddenly stabbed the tip of his sword to meet the fist force. Like a fish swimming against the current, his speed suddenly became extremely fast, and he instantly approached Sun Mingwe. This sword technique was unusually exquisite. It was an ultimate move to win by surprise. Usually, one move could decide life and death and turn the situation around. Sun Mingwe did not panic at his approach and threw another divine light fist. She sighed to herself that he was courting death. Being hit by a divine light fist at such a close distance, no matter how exquisite his sword technique was, it would be useless. He could not neutralize the fist force. When the two were only 2 steps away, Chu Li suddenly stretched out his left hand and used Philip's swift thunder. Sun Mingwe frowned as she felt a sense of danger. She greeted it with her jade-white fist. Suddenly, her whole body went numb as if she heard thunder. The inner energy in her body flowed along the strange heart technique. When the tip of Chu Li's sword was about to pierce her chest, she gently flicked the tip of the sword with her finger. The sword was instantly deflected, and Chu Li flew backward. Chu Li felt as if he was struck by lightning. He felt his whole body go numb as the force of Philip's swift thunder returned to him. Sun Mingwe flashed in front of him and threw a punch at his chest. Bang! Chu Li extended his palm. Sun Mingwe only felt a strange force pushing her away. She could not help but take 2 steps back. She looked at Chu Li in shock, but it did not affect her punch at all. She threw another divine light fist. Chu Li was in midair. He barely moved a foot to the side and avoided the divine light fist. After personally experiencing it, he realized how powerful Sun Mingwe was. It was like a fight between an adult and a child. He had no chance of winning at all. Even a strange technique, like Philip's swift thunder, could not do anything to her. Sun Mingwe frowned. Chu Li's cultivation level was much higher than his, but he could not take him down in such a short time. Chu Li was unusually slippery. His divine light fist could not hit its target and was blocked by his various strange techniques. Bang! Sun Mingwe threw another 2 divine light fist. Chu Li could only avoid 1 punch in midair. He could not avoid the other one no matter how hard he tried. He could only take it head-on and collided with Heavenly King Palm. Chu Li was sent flying again. Fortunately, Heavenly King Palm was mysterious and managed to block the force of the divine light fist. Sun Mingwe scoffed and appeared behind Chu Li in a flash. She threw another punch. Chu Li countered with another Heavenly King Palm. Bang! Chu Li was sent flying again. Sun Mingwe also took 2 steps back. She stopped her forward momentum. She felt that Chu Li's palm technique was strange. It was definitely not an ordinary martial art. TSK. TSK. She suddenly waved her hands. 2 flashes of light caught up to Chu Li. 2 flying blades were right in front of him. Chu Li had been guarding against this move, but he could not guard against it. He could only watch as the flying blades hit him. He could only dodge one of them. Sun Mingwe's light blade was about the same level as Chu Li's. However, her skill was more profound and powerful. Chu Li felt like his chest was hit by a big hammer. The speed at which he was sent flying increased. He spat out a stream of blood in midair. Bang! He landed heavily on the ground. Blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth. Stop! Li Hanyin suddenly stood in front of him to block Sun Minghua. Sun Minghua frowned. High officially, Li Hanyin said, Saint, you can't kill Big Brother Chu. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.